Welcome back to another spine number, another week in the world of boutique labels and Blu-rays and 4Ks and everything in between, I guess. Well, there's not really much in between, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's been an interesting last couple of weeks. It feels like with the summer season underway, things have heat up in terms of weather in some locations, and things have heat up when it comes to the boutique label movie announcement, release announcement world. And yes, we will, of course, will be discussing all of that um, in this episode. This is now spine number 141. We are past the 140 mark, and we are kind of moving right along. This is now what my third venture solo into all of this, and I think I'm getting the hang of it a bit. At least I feel a little more comfortable. The nerves are not quite where they were at the beginning of this all, and I'm kind of slowly working my way towards more confidence. More confidence. That's what we need to build up here. And yeah, so we are, like I said, back here once again, and there is so much to talk about that I almost don't know where to start. But luckily, I took my notes like I like to do normally, and I kind of broke it all down to make it somewhat manageable. But my goodness, we just got stuff from all across the board when it comes to the boutique label world. I've got my Paul Newman fan club t-shirt on to give me the extra confidence that I need, the little extra Paul Newman magic, and we will go through all of these together. We'll make this as best as we can. So I just want to wait a couple of minutes here, see if anybody will pop in when it comes to the comments and things like that before we kind of dive right in. I also want to take a drink of my water because it's going to be a little bit of a long one, a little bit of a long one. So let me clear my throat and let's see what we've got going. So let's start with kind of the beginning of it all. So about 2 weeks ago, where we left off, literally right after that, we got some announcements from Warner Archive. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, or those of you listening in the future, basically this is a podcast where we talk about all the boutique announcements from the various boutique labels. I didn't think I'd had to say that by now, but you never know. New faces, new names, new people come along when it comes to the YouTube stream, when it comes to just listening on the podcast, anywhere. So I just want to make sure to dive into that a little bit, and I'll just be going through not everything. I'll be going through just the things that I'm most interested in getting, most interested in adding to my collection, but it seems to be a little bit of a broad spectrum thing. But we all have our favorites here and there. We all have our taste when it comes to how we want to archive, how we want to cultivate, how we want to, make our collections our own. So I'm going to start here with one of my favorites is really Warner Archive, and they have their July announcement, July of 2024. And it is a nice mix here of a gamut of things. But the first one I want to talk about here is some animation. I love animation. And coincidentally, one of my long-term collecting goals is to collect everything Hanna-Barbera. And that includes like Scooby-Doo, Yogi Bear, the Jetsons, the Flintstones, Snagglepuss, uh, everybody, Magilla Gorilla, everybody. And so I've been slowly collecting them over the years on various DVD releases, but now we're getting Blu-rays, and they're doing a lot of Scooby-Doo. We've got another Scooby-Doo double feature here, and this is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, and Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders. Now, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, I didn't realize was the first time that we've got the um premiere of the Hex Girls in the Scooby-Doo world. The Hex Girls being that kind of goth girl band that's awesome. And I know a lot of people have talked about them when it comes to like memes and things and gifs and all kinds of stuff. And it's something that has been a bit of a pop culture thing. So that's really, really cool. And it's actually a pretty decent Scooby-Doo movie. I really rather enjoy these Scooby-Doo films. I think they're, very fun and entertaining, and they do capture the spirit of Scooby-Doo. And there's been so many of these movies over the years. Scooby-Doo's been around, like I said in the previous podcast episode, since the late 60s. He's really been around for so long. So there's so much stuff that goes all the way up to this day. So Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost is basically Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, Daphne, and Fred. Basically, uh, they they get into their usual shenanigans. Their usual shenanigans where they end up in a place where they probably shouldn't be, and they have to kind of investigate what is going on. And there's some perhaps magical things going on. There's maybe some things are coming back from the dead, but in typical Scooby Doo fashion, things are not quite what they appear to be. So Scooby Doo and the Mystery Gang visit Oak Haven, Massachusetts, to seek strange goings on involving a famous horror novelist and his ancestor who is rumored to be a witch. So basically, Oak Haven is a stand in for Salem, Massachusetts, famous for the Salem witch trials and all those things. It's a very popular tourist site here in New England. I know people who go there on weekend vacations. People go there on daily vacations. A lot of people go there in October. The place is packed. They've got like museums and tours and shops, and there's a movie theaters there. There's all kinds of things there. But this is a um, kind of a Scooby-Doo movie set there, and you're dealing with witches, so you're dealing with magic and all that kind of stuff. I rather enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very good. The other film, on the other hand, Scooby-Doo and Alien Invasion, the Alien Invaders. See, I keep thinking Alien Invasion, and it's Alien Invaders. That screws me up. So, a cosmic case of flying saucers, intergalactic intrigue, and out-of-this-world romance launches Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Inc. gang into their most unearthly adventure ever. So you got Scooby Doo and you've got aliens. That's kind of this movie. They're in an area that's kind of like a Roswell, New Mexico type of situation where there's these sightings of aliens going about with like spaceships and lights and things like that. So Scooby Doo and the gang have to investigate and find out what is going on. I thought it was okay. It was kind of a little slow as opposed to the other film that I watched, and yeah, it was a little not good. Not as good as the other one, but it's fine. It's Scooby Doo. It's the gang. It's fun stuff. So moving on from there, let's go to the other thing that I thought was very interesting, and this is a movie called let me see, where are you? War of the Buttons. So War of the Buttons is an interesting film. It's an Irish film from, I want to say, um, 1994. Yeah, that's right, 1994. And a war between two Irish youth gangs consists of removing and retrieving buttons from each other's clothing. Kind of what the premise is. There's a little more to it than that. So you've got there's these two Irish um, gangs of kids. They're like adolescents, think teenagers or early teens and whatnot. So they've got all that teen angst. They got all that kind of stuff going on, and they're from different our economic brackets, if you will. One group of kids is from a more working class families, and the other kids are from a more middle class family. So I guess more well to do, more not even aristocratic. Their families are more just comfortably wealthy, if you understand the concept of a middle class versus a working class. And they have a little rivalry going on, and they kind of fight each other. Like they fight each other with like sticks and rocks and things like that, and they like invade each other's territories and things and whatnot, and buttons play into the whole thing, but it's not really that. It's an interesting kind of endearing look at youth from a certain perspective and from a certain time. Like I said, you've got that economic look to it, you've got that archetype look to it, and it's rather interesting. Liam Cunningham is in the film. Liam Cunningham, probably most known for being the Onion Knight in Game of Thrones. He is a school teacher in this film, and he's kind of somewhat of a mentor to these kids, but don't think of like a like a Dead Poet Society or anything like that. He's not that involved. But the film takes place in a small Irish town, small Irish area, so everyone kind of knows each other and everyone's kind of involved in people's lives. And you also get a perspective of kind of what the adults are doing in these kids' lives. And some being more involved than others, some being neglectful, and you kind of see how these kids live their lives based off of that. You know what I mean? We don't tend to realize how impactful parents and adults can be on their child's life. Sometimes that gets lost in our society, and this film it comments on that a little bit. Really good film, really good film. A film I had never heard of up until now. Let me move on to something else. But that was War of the Buttons from 1994. Unfortunately, War of the Buttons has no special features. The Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost slash Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders has a making of featurettes, and that's about it, and some promotional trailers. So nothing really here when it comes to special features. Next is a movie called Marie: A True Story, and this is a film that's directed by Roger Donaldson, which is a name I think we brought up a few times here on the podcast. He's one of those recurring guys where kind of a working man's director. Let me see. Let me look up Roger Donaldson. I've probably done this a million times. Yes, he's directed Species, Dante's Peak, No Way Out, 13 Days, The Recruit, The Bounty from 1984. He directed Cocktail with Tom Cruise. So you probably maybe have seen his work before. I think he directed. Oh man, he directed Cadillac Man from 1990. That's a throwback. That's a throwback. Yeah, he directed The Getaway from '94, which I talked about several episodes ago with Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger. And so Roger Donaldson is, like I said, kind of a career working actor. And this film stars Sissy Spacek, Jeff Daniels is in the film as well. Morgan Freeman is in a very small role. This is 1985, mind you. So this is kind of, before Morgan Freeman really came on the scene later on. So basically, um, let me read the premise here. So a single mother takes a job with the government where she is confronted with corruption. This is based on a true story from the 1970s where Sissy Spacek gets a government job working for, I believe, the parole board. I think she works with the parolees and I think which is connected to the attorney general. And there's a lot of corruption going on within that area, and she is one of the people who want to expose that corruption, and she wants to kind of clean it up in her own way. And of course, exposing that corruption is going to ruffle a few feathers. Political corruption, people abusing their power, all those kinds of things. It's going to get her in trouble. It's going to put her in harm's way. And what you see in the movie is also her home life, being a single mother of two children. One is dealing with some health issues as well. So you're dealing with that personal side of her life plus professional side of life, and how those two combat with one another. I've always loved Sissy Spacek. I don't think I need to explain who Sissy Spacek is, or so you. If you're a fan of hers, I think you'll dig that. You'll like this movie. It's overall an okay movie. It's not great. I don't think it's quite as powerful as the movie wants itself to be, but it's an interesting film. It's an interesting film. So that's Marie from 1985, directed by Roger Donaldson. Unfortunately, this Blu-ray has no special features, none at all. Just theatrical trailer, which is kind of unfortunate. Um, so yeah, that's a bit, you know, unfortunate. But let's move on. Let me move back to the tab here. So next we've got Idiot's Delight. And this is, we're going back in the time machine now. We're going back to the things I love. So Idiot's Delight, I believe is an MGM film. This is an MGM film from let me look at the date here. 1939. Um this movie stars Clark Gable, as well as Norma Shear. Directed by I almost said Clancy Brown. It's not Clancy Brown. It's Clarence Brown. So Clarence Brown directed this, and I want to pull up Clarence Brown's filmography really quickly just to see, give you a sense of what he's directed. Okay, so I have seen a few of his films, 7 of them actually. So he directed Wife for a Secretary, also with Clark Gable. He directed Anna Christie from 1930. He directed the movie Possessed from 1931. National Velvet, which was an early film from Elizabeth Taylor when she was very young, from 1944. He directed that. And this film is an interesting film. It's a group of disparate travelers are thrown together in a posh Alpine hotel when the borders are closed at the start of World War II. That's kind of what the movie's about, but also kind of not. So this movie, like I said, stars Clark Gable, and it starts actually very post World War One. He's a soldier from World War One, and he returns home. And so we're dealing with this kind of the aftermath of the Great War. We're dealing with post World War One, right before the Roaring Twenties, and he's a man who puts on like these stage shows, like these novelty act stage shows and things like that. And he's trying to get this show off of the ground. I think it's something that he did, before he got involved in the war. So he's trying to revive that. And he's not having too much success initially, but then the movie kind of flashes forward 20 years, like we move forward in time 20 years to the breakout of another grand war, World War II. And he gets stuck in this neutral country in the Alps. And who is there with him is like a bunch of other people, and one of the women happens to be one of the women he confronted or had a relationship with earlier on in the film. And she's got a different identity now, and he's trying to kind of figure her out, and all of these things happen. Meanwhile, the war's breaking out. So you got a lot of balance and a lot of like the a lot of things going on in this movie. But the movie's relatively short. It's 107 minutes. I did lie there. There's an alternate ending of the film as well, which I don't know is a special feature on here. I gotta take a look, because that would be really nice. They shot two endings. They shot like a happy, hopeful ending, and then they shot like a depressing ending. Uh, and they're rather different in terms of tone. So let's see. So this did get a 4K restoration from the best preservation elements. This is from 1939, so perhaps the film elements are long gone, or at least the original camera negative elements. So you get classic cartoons, The Good Egg, It's an Ill Wind. I assume those are like Looney Tunes types of cartoons. Probably carryovers from the DVD. That seems to be the case. But it doesn't say anything here about the alternate ending. Maybe it's there at the end of the film and they just didn't mention it here, but that would be interesting to see. And Norma Shear plays the woman that I'm referring to that he meets again later on. Um, I believe she does. Yeah, it was released in the same year as Gone with the Wind, Clark Gable was in that film as well. Clark Gable does a memorable scene of Putting on the Ritz, that famous song. Uh, yeah, and this is an Irving Berlin classic that ends with the king leaping gracefully into the arms of a chorus line of peroxide cuties. That's what put on the Ritz is. I'm just reading the thing, the blurb here on Blu-ray.com. I perhaps should have read this before I went live, but sometimes things happen. um, so yeah, so let's move on from there. I did really like Idiot's Delight a lot. It's probably a movie I'm gonna get. I'm a sucker for golden age Hollywood stuff. That's my bread and butter. That's what I love so much. But speaking of another film, we've got Northwest Passage. Now, Northwest Passage is a movie starring Spencer Tracy. It's a movie from 1940, and it's a movie that I it's not great, but I thought I would mention it because it stars Spencer Tracy. That would be a main reason to kind of watch the movie. It's also directed by King Vidor, which is another reason to mention. King Vidor directed Stella Dallas. He also directed The Champ, and he directed A Duel in the Sun, which has a Kino Blu-ray release that I have. I had the DVD release as well. Because Duel in the Sun, I know, was a movie that Martin Scorsese's a big fan of. I remember him mentioning that in his, and when he was kind of with his journey through like American cinema, or that documentary. I remember him when he got to westerns. He mentioned Duel in the Sun from 1946. Great film, really great film. I highly recommend people check that out. So King Vidor directed this film called Northwest Passage. It's based on the Kenneth Rogers novel of the same name. This film tells the story of two friends who join Rogers's Rangers as the legendary elite force engages the enemy during the French and Indian War. The film focuses on their famous raid at Fort St. Francis and their marches before and after the battle. So we've got a war movie based during the French and Indian War. You don't see that very often. It's not a war that gets highlighted in movies a lot, just because it's the war before the American Revolution. It's the war while the United States was still a colony. It's actually one of the reasons, uh, kind of the long foreshadowing reasons of the United States going going to war for independence. A lot of the results of that war led to like the taxations and all that kind of stuff from Great Britain that pissed off the colonists and all that kind of stuff. But here we've got a movie that's a war movie based on that. Some of the war battle sequences are really, really good and interesting and entertaining. But a lot of the film I think was rather kind of middle ground for me. But I do, like I said, I do like King Vidor. I love Spencer Tracy. Those are the reasons to check out this movie or add it to your collection. But let's move on from there. Let's move on to briefly. Let me talk about this movie briefly because it's not very good at all. But I thought I would mention it just for those who are interested. We do have another Elvis film, an odd Elvis film. So it's called Harem Scarum, and Harem Scarum is a movie where oh boy, where it came out in 1965. So Elvis Presley stars in the fun-filled romp as an American film star who is kidnapped while touring the Middle East. Aided by a couple of locals, he fights and sings his way to romance and freedom. That's the little description they have here. Let me check Letterboxd to see what they have in terms of a synopsis here. So Johnny Tyrone, action movie star and ladies' man, is traveling through the Middle East on a goodwill tour to promote his latest movie, Sands of the Desert. Once he arrives, however, he is kidnapped by a gang of assassins who were so impressed on his with his on-screen adventures that they want to hire him to carry out an assassination for them. It's a little bit of a wrong man scenario, but it's it's not good at all. Uh, Elvis Presley just so far out of his element in this movie, even though they try to make it an Elvis film. They give him sequences for him to romance women, they give him sequences to sing and play the guitar, but they just like it just don't work. They're trying to wedge two genres of film or two subgenres of film into one, and they just don't mesh at all. At least not with Elvis Presley. I haven't seen a lot of Elvis Presley. I will be forthright when it comes to that. I've seen about uh, like four of his films now as an actor. Um, I've seen Jailhouse Rock. I've seen what's the movie? I've seen Spin Out. I've seen Harem Scarum, and I've seen Tickle Me. And so I've gotten a kind of a gist of what a uh, Elvis Presley film is kind of like. So this film really didn't work for me at all. But I thought I would mention it because there are a lot of Elvis fans out there, obviously for him being the icon that he is, the legend that he was. And this movie does get a 4K restoration from the original camera negative. You get some Tom and Jerry cartoons, which is really cool. The Cat's Meouch of Feline Bondage. Uh, yeah, that's really cool. I really wish they would put more Tom and Jerry on Blu-ray in general. I know there was a Blu-ray that came out a few years ago, many years ago now, actually, and I think there was only one volume of that. They tried to do kind of what Warner Brothers is doing with Looney Tunes, giving us kind of random volumes here and there. I know Warner Archive has put out 3 volumes so far. I still have to get the third one to add to my collection, but I want more Tom and Jerry, and I know that was an MGM product, so I'm wondering who's got the rights to all of that now. I think it's Warner Brothers. I think it's Warner Brothers. So perhaps we'll get more of that eventually. So let's move on from Warner Archive. I spent way too much time talking about that, a good 20 minutes or so. And we've got some comments here. Let me go check them out. Of course, our friend Josephine DeMarco in the comments. And she writes, hello, Andrew, new watchers since last. The Knack and How to Get It, Smiley Face, Black Sabbath, Take Out, Starlet, Cutthroat Island, and Come Back Africa. So Black Sabbath, I believe, is a Mario Bava film from 1963. And that movie is really good. And yes, that is where the band Black Sabbath, I believe, got their name from, was from that Mario Bava movie. Um, yeah, it's an Italian horror film from the '60s. It's very good. I believe there are 2 Blu-ray releases of it from Kino. There's the original Italian cut, and then there's the AIP cut. So when those Italian horror films got over to the United States, they were acquired by the late great Roger Corman and American International Pictures, and then they were kind of given English dubs and then kind of recut for American audiences, essentially. So we've got the American cut essentially. But Black Sabbath is very cool. Takeout and Starlet are Sean Baker films. Sean Baker, who we interviewed here on Chasing Labels about 2 years ago or so, I want to say, maybe a year ago. I'm sorry, time seems to, be kind of funny with me these days, and I have a bunch of his films here, coincidentally. They're buried. Yeah, they're buried over here in these piles I have. I was gonna bring them out, but they're over there. But I do have Takeout, which got a Criterion release, which we got to talk to Sean Baker about because I think that Criterion release had come out around that time, and he talked to us about kind of that process. Starlet is another one of his films that's really really good. It has a Blu-ray release as well. Cutthroat Island is a classic, and the others I'm not too familiar with. But so there's that, and then I think there's another one here. Yeah, Waxwork, which I have talked about. I have not talked about. I haven't seen, but I've heard about. That's what I meant to say. And then Alma's Rainbow from 1994. Very cool. Very cool. If anybody else has anything to share about what they've been watching, please drop the comments below and just tell us what you've been watching because I know that I've been watching a ton of stuff, especially for the show here. So let's move on to. Let me look at my notes, see what I want to move on to next. Um, let's see. Let's move on to Kino. Let me find my Kino tab here. Um, let's see. Kino, where are you? There you are. So Kino had some things from last time. I believe last we left off, they were talking. It was Memorial Day, and they had just announced. Um, they had just announced Sands of Iwo Jima, but after that, they gave us the details and release date for their release of No Way Out, their 4K UHD release of No Way Out, starring Kevin Costner. And this is coming out on July 30th. It's getting a 2-disc edition, a 4K UHD disc, as well as a Blu-ray disc, and this will be replacing or kind of an upgrade of the Shout Factory disc, which came out, I believe, 2016, somewhere around there. Maybe it was a few years ago, but that's out of print now. Kino's got the license to No Way Out, and they are putting it out. And unfortunately, it's a movie I still haven't seen. I still haven't seen this movie yet. I know Steven has seen the movie. I think he owns that Shout Factory release actually, and he's a big Kevin Costner fan. So this is getting a brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan with 35 millimeter original camera negative, new audio commentary by filmmaker historian Steve Mitchell and writer actor Richard Brewer. And then I believe this is another Roger Donaldson film. Yeah, because I just mentioned this is a Roger Donaldson film. So this is No Way Out, starring Kevin Costner. That's gonna be interesting. I may pick that up. I feel like I'm gonna wait for a Kino sale to get that, just because that's a good sale item I think for me to get. But moving on, we got a movie called Gung Ho. This is from 1986. This is just says coming soon on Blu-ray, just a Blu-ray release from a brand new 2024 HD master. And why this film is of note? This is a Ron Howard film. If you're a fan of Ron Howard and his work, and you've got a Ron Howard section in your collection like I do, you may want this movie, Gung Ho. And this is a movie starring Michael Keaton, Ged Watanabe, who I believe was in. Let me see. Hold on. Let me go check. Because I always get these movies confused. So let's see. Gung Ho. From 1986. I just scrolled past it. Let's see. Yeah, Ron Howard. Of course, things want to act up on me now. So yes, he was in 16 Candles. Yeah, he was in 16 Candles. I always get those movies confused together sometimes. Like 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink, I kind of confuse the two together because they both star Molly Ringwald. They're both kind of coming of age films from Molly Ringwald. I'm a Molly Ringwald character. So I want to make sure I got the right film. So yeah, 16 Candles. But this is an interesting movie that's kind of a time capsule piece of its time. So when a Western Pennsylvania auto plant is acquired by a Japanese company, brokering auto worker Hunt Stevenson, Michael Keaton, faces the tricky challenge of mediating the assimilation of two clashing corporate cultures. At one end is the Japanese plant manager and the sycophant who is angling for his position. At the other, a number of disgruntled longtime union members struggle with the new exigencies of Japanese quality control. I've never heard of the word exigencies before. And I've done a lot of reading in my time. So what we got here is the culture clash. East meets West in the auto industry, in the manufacturing industry. So like Western Pennsylvania blue collar working class town. Think of Pittsburgh, which I believe that's where Michael Keaton is from. Don't quote me on that. So he's kind of the head of this plant. Well, he's kind of the representative of the workers of this plant, and they get bought out by this Japanese company. And this Japanese company wants to run it like they run their factories in Japan, which is not going to work here because none of the people who work there are used to that. They don't operate like that. It's a different culture, different mindsets, a different uh, process of working, process of manufacturing. So you're going to get a culture clash, and Michael Keaton is the one who's got to kind of uh, be the go-between. He's got to work with both sides here. And of course, it leads to a lot of problems and it leads to a lot of conflict and it leads to all this kinds of stuff. Michael Keaton is great in this movie. I think Getty Watanabe is also really great in this movie. George Wendt is in the movie as well. George Wendt, of course, being in Cheers later on. Also, a very young John Turturro was in this movie as well. This was before he would be in Do the Right Thing, and of course the Coen Brothers films of the '90s and whatnot. So it was nice to see him. He's one of the workers at this factory as well as George Wendt. Yeah, it's an interesting movie. Why I think it's kind of a time capsule piece because it feels very 80s. It feels very 80s. It's got that 80s kind of political vibe to it, that Reagan era type of political economics in it, not to get too political. Capitalism, being the right form of economics, you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff. But yeah, that's a little probably reading into it a bit too much. It's more surface level than that. But yeah, Gung Ho. It's a movie, a Ron Howard film I had never seen before. It's a Ron Howard film I have never really heard of before until now. I'm gonna add it to my collection. It reminds me that I need to upgrade my DVD copy of Night Shift, which is put out by Warner Archive now. I keep looking at the snapper case DVD of it on my shelf, and I just like, I gotta upgrade this. Gotta upgrade this. But that's Gung Ho from 1986, directed by Ron Howard. So let's move on from there. Let me go find my tab. There it is. There's the tab for Kino. Scrolling up, we got Rules of Engagement, a film by the late great William Friedkin. Talk about a time capsule piece. This movie came out in the year 2000, starring Tommy Lee Jones, Samuel L. Jackson, Guy Pearce, Ben Kingsley, Bruce Greenwood, Ann Archer, Blair Underwood, Philip Baker Hall, and Dale Dye. Um, yeah, screenplay by Stephen Gaghan, who wrote Traffic. Directed by, like I said, William Friedkin. To Live and Let Die, The Exorcist, um, you know, French Connection. Need I go on? Need I go on? But this movie is very much a time capsule piece because talk about political. Jeez, I'm pretty sure many of you have heard of the movie before and have seen the movie before. So this may be all kind of repetitious for you. So a Marine colonel is brought to court martial after ordering his men to fire on demonstrators surrounding the American embassy in Yemen. So this Marine colonel is Samuel L. Jackson. He is a veteran who's been in the Marines since Vietnam, and you get like Vietnam flashbacks. There's a whole backstory here about him in Vietnam and all kinds of stuff here. But you get him in the modern day, I mean, being the late '90s, really, and he he gets in an entanglement at an embassy in Yemen where there's protesters and people like throwing rocks and shooting at this embassy, and he's brought in to evacuate it and kind of you know get people out of there and calm the situation and whatnot and address what's going on there. And he tells his men to fire on the crowd of protesters and kills them all. And the reason why I think this is a time capsule piece, as you kind of judged already, it's a political movie. This is pre 9/11 Middle Eastern type of political stuff we're venturing into. Much different than post 9/11 Middle Eastern political stuff. The world was vastly changed by that event. I don't think that can be overstated enough. International politics and history and all that kind of stuff. So this movie is like it's a look at the world right before that, and how a situation like this would be dealt with in the 90s versus dealt with in the 2000s and later on. So that's why it's a political kind of time capsule piece there. Tommy Lee Jones is brought in to represent him at his court martial, essentially be his lawyer, Samuel Jackson's lawyer. And what you get is a courtroom drama with a military twist to it. I won't tell you, how it goes, but it's very interesting. William Friedkin being um, interested in courtroom dramas. This would be after he did his TV movie version of 12 Angry Men, the remake. Of course, his last film that he made was a kind of a remake of um um uh the Caine Mutiny, but no, it's the Caine Mutiny court martial. It's just the political trial, the court martial trial of the Caine Mutiny. So even up until his passing, William Friedkin was making films dealing with courtroom dramas, dealing with military drama, and all of that. Um, I could say Rule of Engagement is pretty interesting, dealing with uh, political corruption, dealing with political politics, and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was well directed by the late great William Friedkin. Good film, good film. I would say it's pretty good. I will be adding it to my collection, needless to say, just because I've got my William Friedkin collection going section of my collection. I gotta I gotta add to it, of course. So let's move on from there. Let's see, do I have anything else on here? Let's see. Ah, yes, there's another film noir box set coming out. Holy heck, there've been so many of these. Oh my goodness. So this is Film Noir, The Dark Side of Cinema, no, box set number 22. That is Romanal XXII. If you're keeping track of the Roman numerals here, for those of you who have been collecting these all along, how do they look on your shelf? I'm pretty sure it's taking up nearly a whole shelf wall length of boxes now. There's so many of these now, but this one, as many of the others have, they collect three movies. We have The Enforcer from 1951, that is directed by Breton Windust and Raoul Walsh, uncredited. The Scarlet Hour from 1956, starring actually this is directed by Michael Curtiz, who directed Casablanca. And then we've got Plunder Road from 1957, that is directed by Hubert Cornfield, I guess directed The Night of the Following Day. Shot by Ernest Haller, who shot Gone with the Wind. The previous film was shot by Lionel Linden, who shot The Manchurian Candidate, and then The Enforcer was shot by Robert Burks, who shot Strangers on a Train. Interesting. The Enforcer I'm aware of. I haven't seen it yet. At least I should probably check up on that, because this is a movie starring Humphrey Bogart. I believe it's one of his lesser film noirs. Let me just get the synopsis on here. Yeah, 1951. Oh, I actually have seen this movie. Hey now. After years of investigation, Assistant District Attorney Martin Ferguson has managed to build a solid case against an elusive gangster whose top lieutenant is about to testify. And I believe the Assistant District Attorney is Humphrey Bogart. Yes. Zero Mostel is in the film as well. He plays Big Babe Lazich. I'm assuming he's the bad guy. It's been a few years since I've seen it, so please excuse me, I don't know the details. By a few years, I mean I watched it in January of 2023. I probably should remember this movie, but I I don't. I know I gave it a high rating on Letterboxd though. Uh, so I guess I really liked it. And I'm pretty sure if I started watching this movie now, it would all start flooding back to me. But this has been available on Blu-ray for a while here. At least I recall seeing a standalone Blu-ray of this from Kino. Let's see, The Enforcer, 1951. Yes, yeah, they had. Was it them? Hold on. Or was it Olive? Nope, it was Olive Films. Okay, so it was Olive Films. It's one of those Olive Films releases, I believe, that have had the licensing lapse, and then Kino's picked up the license for it. So that's really cool. So we're getting The Enforcer back out, another Humphrey Bogart film. If you've been collecting Humphrey Bogart films all along, I guess you kind of have to get this box set. I know I have to. Nah, I have to. I still have to get many of the other ones. I always say this all the time. I'm way behind on collecting, just way behind. But I guess that's always the case with collecting. You're always going to be way behind because they're always coming out with new things. That's why we have chasing labels. You know, we're talking about all the new stuff coming up and all the stuff that's come out before. So let's see what else Kino's got cooking for us here. All right, so there's that box set coming soon. There's been no date on it. These are new HD masters by Paramount Pictures, so probably extending from their Paramount Pictures deal. All right, so we've got confirmation on Jean-Luc Godard's Alphaville. It's coming out August 13th on 4K UHD. That's good to know. Now let me go on to some things that aren't on their Facebook page. We've got there's this movie that's being put out by Kino Classics. Now, of course, like I mentioned last time, Kino's got a couple of different labels. They got the Kino Classics line, the Kino Lorber Studio Classics line, and then they've got, I guess, just Kino Lorber. I don't know, but you understand what I'm saying here. Those that I just mentioned were part of Kino Lorber Studio Classics, but here we've got a film just put out by Kino Lorber Classics, I believe. And this is a film from 1996. It's a French film called The Apartment, or L'Appartement if you're French. If you want to sound cool, call it L'Appartement. Impress all your friends. Impress all your friends. But this is a film from 1996 starring Vincent Cassel, Monica Bellucci, Romain Bohringer, and it's scheduled to arrive on the market August 20th. So this Blu-ray is coming out in August. Description: The Apartment is a hauntingly beautiful romantic thriller about a man, Vincent Cassel, who turns his life upside down when he overhears the melodic voice of his lost love, portrayed by Monica Bellucci. In a crowded cafe, gone before he can catch her, he sets out to find her, abandoning his fiancée, his luggage, and his promising career. So this is a movie about kind of love and obsession and the the results of that, the kind of negative results of that, really. It's also a movie about so much more than that. It's a movie that is an interplay with a bunch of characters. You're going back and forth in terms of seeing the relationship that he had with the Monica Bellucci character, and how captivating it was. You know, Monica Bellucci being one of the most stunning women I think I've ever seen on screen, and just how, just being overwhelmed by her beauty and overwhelmed by being in a relationship with her and how that sticks with him. And then kind of seeing how having all of those emotions flood back into you after not seeing this person for a few years. And that happens in real life. You know what I mean? Like you have like, the long lost love, the first loves and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you see someone you haven't seen after a few years and you remember all of the emotional attachment that there is with that person. And that's what you get here with Vincent Cassel, and he's kind of beside himself from it. And he starts trying to find out, where she is, what she's doing. And then another person enters the fold here. And then there's a whole other story going on. I won't get into it, but then there comes a romantic interplay between a group of people, well, between Vincent Cassel, um, his love and romanticizing of the Monica Bellucci character, plus Romain Bohringer, and then Jean-Philippe Icoffe is this other actor who's in who plays his best friend, and he's involved in this kind of relationship between the four of them. Very interesting. Kind of reminds me a lot of the movie Closer that I mentioned a few weeks ago on Watch Pile. This idea of these four people and the intertwining of their lives. Very good film. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it. It's a movie I went in completely blind to it. What is interesting about this Blu-ray release, though, for The Apartment from 1996, it's got an audio commentary by critic Adrian Martin. Adrian Martin, we've interviewed here on Chasing Labels some time ago. He showed up also as a special guest for our 100th episode that we did last May, I believe, or not this past May, but the May from 2023. And yeah, so that's very, very cool. Good to see him putting an audio commentary on here. So that makes me want to get it all the more. So I've got that, and then I've got Kino's doing a big release here. Okay, so Kino's doing a 4K restoration of Last Year on Marienbad, and they are putting it out um, and they're putting it out. So last year, Marienbad is a movie that was released by Criterion many years ago. So last year, Marienbad is this super surreal, hauntingly beautiful mind trip of a film. It's really, man, I couldn't even describe this film to people if I tried. It's a stunning master artistic work. Um, my goodness. Um, yeah, it's coming out in 4K and it's coming out in Blu-ray. I can't describe this film. There's a description here. Let me just read it to you. Winner of the Golden Lion at the 1961 Venice Film Festival last year at Marienbad is a hypnotically beautiful puzzle box of a film, one of the most influential in history, directed by Alain René. A sensuous yeah, Alain René's sensuous tracking shots and Delphine Seyreg's iconic Chanel gowns have become part of the cinematic lexicon and can now be seen in a gorgeous 4K restoration from Studio Canal in a large international hotel in the European resort town of Marienbad with a sumptuous but austere decor, a marble universe with gold paneling, statues, and stiff servants. The rich anonymous clientele circulates. A man is convinced he met an enigmatic woman the previous year at the same location and perhaps had a flirtation. A second man, possibly the woman's lover or husband, repeatedly intimidates the first man. Their relations unfold through flashback shards that never quite fit into place. Their lives a hall of mirrors that never reflect a true self. The movie is fractured plot line like you've never seen. You're just drifting in a dreamlike, ethereal state through a film that really has no plot. Um, they tried to tell you what the plot is here, but I've seen the movie and I didn't know that that's what was going on in it. It's such a mood piece. It's so open to interpretation. It's like avant-garde art. It really is. But it's getting a 4K UHD release, a two-disc edition, audio commentary by film historian Tim Lucas, interview with filmmaker Volker Schlandorf, very interesting. Last year, Marienbad A to Z, a visual essay by film historian James Cand. Memories of last year at Marienbad, Toute la mémoire du monde, which is a short film by Alain René from 1957. I've had this on Blu-ray, oh goodness, since 2011, 2012. I have it in over on my shelf somewhere. I should have brought it out for this. It's got a clear white slipcover. It's one of the earliest Blu-rays I think that Criterion put out. Let me just check what year it came out because it has a slipcover. That's how long ago it came out. And it was when Criterion was putting out Blu-rays and they didn't even have the regular cases. I just happen to have um Pink Flamingos. I always have to have John Waters near me. I need his presence. And you know how they have the regular traditional, Blu-ray case that you've come to know from Criterion. Before that, they just had like digipacks with slipcovers over them. That's how they released a lot of their early Blu-rays. I'm glad they went the more traditional route. But let me look at the last year of Marienbad, to see when it came out. Let's see, 2009. That's when it came out. Came out in 2009. So that's a while ago. Um, and I believe it has been released on Blu-ray since. Yeah, it was released on Blu-ray in 2019 by Kino. So this is an upgrade to that release. So yeah, last year Marienbad, Alain René, it's pure cinema, pure cinema. My goodness, what a stunning film! Oh, we got some more comments here before I move on. Um, Hello, Humboldt Horror Honey, and then we've got, yeah, last year Marienbad is a masterpiece. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is a surreal masterpiece of cinema, purest cinema. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking about that movie. I'm being overwhelmed by it. That's one of those movies where you think about and you just become overwhelmed by it. Like I was thinking of um Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love the other day, and when I think of that movie, I get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed by the sumptuous beauty of it. Just how every frame in that film is just a work of art, an absolute work of art. But yeah, so that was last year at Marienbad. Let me clean up some of these tabs I've got going here, just so my computer doesn't overheat and explode. So let me get rid of that. So the last Kino I want to talk about here, unless I look at my notes and I've got another. Now I'm going to talk about sudden death. So sudden death is um the Jean Claude Van Damme film. It's getting a 4K UHD release from Kino in August. So August 27th, is getting a release. And I think, yeah, they had put this. No, we had actually they announced this. Goodness gracious. They announced that we were getting this in January of 2023. And now they've announced that it's finally coming out in August. So it was a year and 8 months since they announced that it's coming out. My goodness, that's a long time. So anywho, so yeah, we're getting directed by Peter Hyams, coming out August 27th. Ex-fireman Daryl McCord, Jean-Claude Van Damme, has a new job working security at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena. Hoping to impress his kids, he scored tickets to the Stanley Cup Finals just in time because Stanley Cup Finals are currently happening. Unaware that the place has been taken over by a group of terrorists, ex-CIA agent Joshua Foss, Powers Booth, is holding the vice president hostage in a press box and plans to blow up the building if he doesn't pay the ransom. But when Darren learns of his scheme, he jumps into action to save the day. So we've got a die-hard situation starring Jean-Claude Van Damme in a hockey arena. Very interesting. I mentioned to Steven many times Jean-Claude Van Damme and his action films is kind of a blind spot for me, so this would have been way more up his alley, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it at the time. Pretty sure we talked about it at the time, but January of 2023 feels like a long time ago, people. Feels like a long time ago. So yeah, that's finally coming out, but now over to the last of the Kino releases, and this is Prime Cut. Prime Cut, I think, is a super underrated movie directed by Michael Ritchie from 1972. It's getting a 4K release from Kino, a 4K upgrade, really, because I believe they've put out the Blu-ray. Because I have it in my collection, I should have brought it out. It's over there somewhere. I'm looking over at yeah, it's over there somewhere. So Prime Cut, their Blu-ray came out in 2015, so they're upgrading their Blu-ray to a 4K. So this movie is interesting. It stars Lee Marvin, Gene Hackman, Sissy Spacek, directed by Michael Ritchie. And yeah, Lee Marvin is an underworld enforcer sent to Kansas City to collect money from Hackman, a mysterious mobster who has no intention of paying up. And I believe he runs like a slaughterhouse, like a like a cow farm or something hence why the title of the movie is called Prime Cut. But of course the Gene Hackman character is involved in all kinds of other unsavory things that go on in kind of the seedy underworld of Kansas City. Um, and so Lee Marvin is sent to get him to pay his bill to mobsters, and he's just not cooperating. So Lee Marvin's got to take him to task about it. I love Lee Marvin. It's Lee Marvin going back to his days as a heavy. Gene Hackman in the 70s that was his prime, really. He was on another level in the 70s. I'm just kind of learning that now. So that's really cool. I think this is an underrated movie, and Michael Ritchie is a director who I remember watching a lot of his stuff from. Let me look him up right away. Or yeah, let's see, Michael Ritchie, director. Yeah, he directed Fletch, The Bad News Bears. He directed The Candidate with Robert Redford. Um, he directed Smile from 1975, which has a Fun City Editions release. Coincidentally, we're going to talk about Fun City Editions. I have a whole stack of their stuff over there on my recliner. I should have brought them over, but wasn't thinking. But yeah, so that's Michael Ritchie. So that is Prime Cut. It's a movie I actually received as a birthday gift a few years ago from a friend, and I ended up watching it because it was a movie I wanted to buy myself. So he bought it for me. Uh, yeah, underrated movie from the 70s. Kind of seedy, kind of a seedy. Gene Hackman's kind of a piece of work in that movie. Piece of work. Um, yeah. So that's a really cool upgrade. So moving on from there, let's see what I got next in my notes. Let's see, cross that off, cross that off. The apartment we talked about. Ah, yes, Caligula. So the famous film Caligula, um, is getting a 4K UHD release from Drafthouse Films. Um, and yes, and they've given us the detail. It's coming out September 17th. This movie it has a notorious reputation. Notorious reputation. It stars Malcolm McDowell, Teresa Ann Savoy, Helen Mirren, Peter O'Toole, John Gielgud. There's two releases of the film. I think it's the 4K and it's the Blu-ray. Uncut and new ultimate version of this controversial film, Caligula is a 1979 erotic historical drama film focusing on the rise and fall of the Roman Emperor Caligula. It is the only feature film produced by men's magazine Penthouse. Producer Rob Gusion, the magazine's founder, intended to produce an explicit pornographic film with a feature film narrative and high production values. He also cast Penthouse pets as extras in unsimulated sex scenes filmed during post production by himself and Giancarlo Louis. Yeah, it is. That's why it's notoriously, has that reputation of being incredibly, sexual and exploitative in its regard and whatnot. Um, yeah, so this is a 4 disc edition. This Blu-ray of Caligula from Drafthouse Films is a 4 disc edition. It's got the ultimate cut on a 4K Blu-ray disc. It's got the uncut version on a 4K Blu-ray disc. It's got the special features on, on their own Blu-ray, and the fourth disc is a CD, which contains the original motion picture soundtrack. Yeah, so that's interesting. I know this film has a very, like I said, large reputation, and I want to make sure to mention that it was coming out. And it's the first time in several years. Um, yeah, and it's the first time in several years that it's got a release. I know it has a Blu-ray release already from several years ago, but this obviously is getting a new. It's a brand new edition. So let's see. Another commentary. Yes, I didn't know Prime Cut was getting a 4K. Great film. Creepy barn scene with Sissy. Yes, there is a sequence in the. I don't know which barn scene you're referring to. Humboldt Horror Honey. There is there is an auction sequence that takes place in a barn where women are auctioned off. Women by women I mean sex workers are auctioned off to like local men. It's very disturbing. When I said this movie was seedy and Gene Hackman was doing seedy things, that's is what I mean. It is a squeamish movie. Squeamish movie. Um, it's yeah, it's a wild film. Um, but let's see, where was I? Yeah, Caligula. Moving on from Caligula. How does one actually do that? Let's see. So I've got. Now, yeah, let me see. Okay. So the People's Joker is getting a release by Altered Innocence. Coming out August 13th, and they're putting it out on Blu-ray, and I believe they're putting out some type of like a special VHS version, I think, as well. But Alter Innocence, of course, was the partner label at OCN or Vinegar Syndrome, and I think they've since moved out on their own, um, or they moved out and they partnered up with someone else. I know we covered it before, but I can't remember who they teamed up with. I can't remember if it was MVD or Diabolic. Um, so please excuse me, my mind can't really remember. That's why I wish Steven was here. He remembers these things. But Alternate Innocence will release The People's Joker on Blu-ray, co-written, directed, and starring Vera Drew. The release will be available to purchase on August 13th. So, synopsis: this revolutionary DIY parody film and hilarious reimagining of the classic autobiographical coming-of-age story follows an unconfident, closeted trans girl as she moves to Gotham City to make it Gotham City to make it big as a comedian by joining the cast of UCB Live, a government-sanctioned late-night sketch show in a world where comedy has been outlawed. As mainstream success eludes our heroine, leading her to unite with a ragtag team of rejects, misfits, and certain love interest named Mr. J, Joker, the Harlequin, is born again as a confident and psychotic Joker on a collision course with the city's fascist Cape Crusader. Vats of feminizing chemicals, sexy cartoon interludes, scarecrow psychiatrist, CGI Lorne Michaels, and psychedelic gender dysphoria all play supporting roles, helmed by writer, director, editor, and star Vera Drew, and using her own life experience as basis for the film. People's Joker is a deeply personal journey that's as much documentary as it is parody. What is interesting about this movie is I remember it um, making the film festival circuit last year, and I remember screenings having to be canceled because of certain, um, legal rights issues. Obviously, as you just read, it is parroting, it is utilizing the Batman world, DC Comics and the Joker and Harley Quinn and all that kind of stuff. And so they I think they had some legal loops and things they had to go through. But I know it's been exhibiting this year. It's getting screenings this year, and now it's getting a Blu-ray release on August 13th from Alter Innocence. This feels like an Alter Innocence release, either Alter Innocence or AGFA. And it's appropriate that they're announcing it because June is Pride Month. So happy Pride Month to the LGBTQ plus community and everyone in there, and happy Pride Month to everyone in that group. So this is appropriate time to do it, and it's coming with special features. We have a 24-page comic book. There's a commentary track with director Vera Drew, commentary track with director Vera Drew and actor Nathan Foston, and a commentary track with the sorted cast and crew. There's a discussion with director Vera Drew and Corpses, Fools, and Monsters author Willow Caitlin McClay and Caden Mark Gardner. And Kibzo TV, behind the scenes, original theatrical trailer. Yeah, and there's a trailer for it here as well if you want to watch it. Want to watch the trailer. Um, so yeah, so that's very interesting. So I wanted to make sure to mention that. So let's see what we've got cooking next. All right. I think we will be going to Phil Masters. Yes, Phil Masters. So Phil Masters is putting out a movie that I thought was of note. We talked about Film Masters in the past. I know we talked about them when it came to several releases that they had put out before. They're a relatively new label. I think they're new to last year. I know they on the award show, the one that Ryan Vero puts on. I know that they had won, I think, best new label, or they were at least nominated. I can't remember. But I've got one of their releases right here, actually. So I thought I would show that. I have The Terror. So I've got The Terror, of course, from the late, great Roger Corman. This has The Terror as well as The Little Shop of Horrors, which I think is really great. The original Little Shop of Horrors is really good. I know the one from the 80s, that's the musical, is the one everyone loves, but the original is also very interesting as well. So I recommend people check that out. And this release, newly restored, I got a nice thick booklet as well as the disc here. I think it's no 2 discs, 2 discs. So that's Phil Masters. It's the only Phil Masters release I currently have. But this is the one that I'm about to talk about. It's probably what I want to get as well. Let me scroll back over. So we've got this is the movie called Lady of Burlesque from 1943. So it's the reason why you'll hear about it in a second. So, music, mystery, murder. That's what awaits viewers of this memorable movie from director William A. Wellman, who directed Public Enemy, The Oxbow Incident. He directed a lot of pre-code stuff that I've got. Oh, of course, I've got it down here somewhere. Let's see. I've got. I think I got it right on top. So I've got this Forbidden Hollywood DVD set. Has all William Wellman films in it. This is entirely all like pre-code stuff from William Wellman. William Wellman being one of the directors who pushed the envelope so much. That's why we ended up getting the Hays Code in the first place. Was because of him. So I've got a bunch of William Wellman stuff in my collection. And I want to obviously get some more. So this film here is a William Wellman film. Barbara Stanwyck stars in one of her sassiest roles as Deborah Hoople, also known as Dixie Daisy, a brassy burlesque performer who is suspected of murder. Based on the G-String Murders, a novel by the Queen of Burlesque, Gypsy Rose Lee, This feature earned an Oscar nomination for Best Music. Will keep you guessing until the end. There's a commentary on it by Karen Burroughs Hansberry. And I believe it can be ordered from the Filmmaster's website right now. It's a limited edition. Yeah, their limited editions are different than these. So they're different than these. It says limited edition releases are clear cases with a double-sided wrap packaged with a slipcover and include a full color inserted booklet with an essay as well as a commentary. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. So yeah, this is definitely something I want to order, and they're limited to 500 copies. Okay, so I may want to get on that right away. Um, so that's Lady of Burlesque, 500 limited edition copies from Film Masters. Um, yeah, that's cool. So I also wanted to check out something from another company that we've talked about in the past, and that is um I think Film Treasures. Hold on. Yes, Film Treasures. So Film Treasures is putting out Dawn of the Mummy. Uh and so Film Treasures. Hold on, I gotta look this up. Dawn of the Mummy. That's just me sounding things out. So Dawn of the Mummy is coming out August 30th, 2024. Um, so you got some time. So Treasured Films, of course, we interviewed the two guys over at Treasured Films a while ago, and they had put out The Last Hunter. They had put out Satan's Little Helper, Mausoleum, uh, and of course they're going to be putting out this film here. So Dawn of the Mummy from 1981. It all started with seemingly harmless accident. A photographer using a newly discovered Egyptian burial vault as an exotic background for his fashion shoot, frees a mummy after 4,000 years. Damn it, that's why you shouldn't be doing that. Fulfilling an ancient prophecy that the dead pharaoh would come back to seek revenge for his violent death. Reminds me a little bit of The Mummy, with starring Brendan Fraser, um, or even the original Mummy from the Universal Monsters. Obviously, there's that little twist to it. So this is a film put out by Film Treasures. And I believe it's exclusive to their website currently, which I think most of their releases are right now. I think they're pretty much exclusive to their website. Let me check if The Last Hunter, The Last Hunter Standard Edition, you can buy on Amazon, well, Amazon UK. Let me see, The Last Hunter Limited Edition, you can also buy there. So I think it's initially limited to their website and then may get a wide release later on. But yes, support those guys over there. It was just two guys in kind of the middle of England and small working class area. We got a lot of insight into what they're into and what their kind of company means to them, being from a specific area of England. Very interesting interview. Go back and listen to that. Film Treasures. So let's see. I think we're moving on now to Fun City. Yeah, Fun City. Here we go. So, Fun City is putting out a movie called Bad Company, which immediately makes me think of the song Bad Company by the band Bad Company, which is currently playing in my head. And I can't, when you get a song stuck in your head for some reason and you can't get it out and you just want to sing it out loud all the time, thinking you're in like a real life musical, that happens to me sometimes, and I'm thinking about it with the song "Bad Company" by Bad Company. So, but this is a movie starring Jeff Bridges called Bad Company. It is a western. This tale of friendship and survival set in the 1860s focuses on a roguish group of runaways living by their wits and instincts. Two of them are complementary opposites. Drew, Barry Brown, a good boy from the God-fearing stock, out west to evade the draft. This, of course, being the draft, I believe, for the Civil War. Jake, portrayed by Jeff Bridges, a scruffy scoundrel. They encounter rebels and miscreants, and their journey makes them older and wiser beyond their years. Written by Robert Benton and David Newman from Bonnie and Clyde, and directed by Benton, who directed Kramer versus Kramer. This is coming out August 6th, 2024. Yeah, this is something I really, really want. I've been trying to catch up on my Fun City Editions releases. I am about a year or so behind. I just I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I just caught up with everything they have on Vinegar Syndrome's website, so I'm just waiting for that to come in the mail. And then I'm going to I think the next thing I have to get is Primetime Panic 2. Then I've got to get the uh, Fatal Femmes box set that they put out last year, and then some releases after that. But I'm making my way, making my way. It's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to collecting. So do it at your own pace. Do it when you can afford it. Essentially, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, so this film star is very interesting. Bad Company, Jeff Bridges. Let me see when this movie actually came out. I think it's Jeff Bridges in the 70s, which is really cool. Let's see. I'm looking at my watch list on Letterboxd. I almost forgot to say Letterboxd, and I did not add it to my watch list. Doesn't look like I did. Let me let me go look it up. So Bad Company. Um, yep, Bad Company 1972. So early Jeff Bridges, post probably right after he did the Last Picture Show. So this would be after that. Um, yeah, definitely interested in seeing this. I believe is it available to it's available to rent on demand. Um, it feels like Hoopla and Canopy are the two library streaming services, and and it really all depends on what your library offers. I think that seems to be the case. So moving on from there, um, let's see. So that's Fun City. Let me clear that out of the way. Oh, I just canceled out something else, but that's okay. Um, moving back over. So we will be going now to Shout Studios. Shout Studios um added a bunch of stuff. So Scream Factory and Shout Factory August titles. A few things here I wanted to mention. So Bill and Ted's Most Triumphant Trilogy. So you're getting Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, you're getting Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and you're getting Bill and Ted Face the Music, all in 4K in this box set. And not only are you getting um all the movies in 4K, you're getting, I believe, um Blu-rays come for each movie, so it's a 6 disc set. It's a 6 disc set. And I think those Blu-rays have special features. Now I'm not sure if they carry over all of the special features um that were in the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure Blu-ray box set that Shout Factory put out a few years ago, or Shout Studios put out a few years ago. I'm still working on calling it Shout Studios versus Shout Factory because the 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 mental brain of mine kind of said Shout Factory so many times in my life that it's just built into there now. It's built into there. So I don't know if it carries over every special feature from that box set. Hold on, kind of losing my mind here. Let me check with that. Yeah, most excellent collection. That was what it was called. And that most excellent collection only contained the first two films plus extra features, and then they released Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure, or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on 4K by itself, and that 4K by itself did not carry over pretty much none of the special features from that previous Blu-ray collector's edition. So it was kind of a mess. But this one kind of fixes a lot of that issues where you get the movie plus a lot of the extra features from that first Blu-ray collection, plus you get the sequel and you get the third film all in 4K. I don't know what people thought of the third film. I really liked it. I thought it was very endearing. Um, the second film for me probably has a soft spot for a lot of people who grew up with it, a lot of nostalgia for it, but it's not my favorite. I still like the first film a lot. Still like the first film a lot. But I wanted to mention that we are getting a most triumphant trilogy, 4K trilogy of the Bill and Ted films. That's important. What also is important is this release, which came out of nowhere. Please excuse me for a moment here. So we are getting a Blu-ray release for the first time ever of Death to Smoochie, directed by Danny DeVito, the film from 2002 starring Robin Williams, Ed Norton, Catherine Keener, Danny DeVito's in the movie, Jon Stewart's in the movie. Death to Smoochie is a fascinating movie. This is the movie I've been, thinking about how to describe the movie. This is the movie your cool, hip friend tells you about in high school and college. He owns a couple of DVDs, and Death to Smoochie is one of them. That's how I feel like this movie is. That's what you hear about Death to Smoochie, because I remember when the movie came out back in 2002, and of course, starring Robin Williams. You expect a certain type of movie, and it's a darker type of movie. It's a parody film, like a satire. It's super underrated. So underrated. So, children's television star Rainbow Randolph is fired over a bribery scandal and replaced by Smoochie, an idealistic purple rhinoceros. When Randolph discovers that Smoochie is also having an affair with Randolph's ex-lover, Nora, a top programming executive at the network, he plots his revenge. Um, I haven't seen Death to Smoochie in so many years. Holy heck. I've never owned the DVD. I think I've only ever seen it. I maybe early days of streaming. I probably saw it on cable. I probably saw it on like a premium cable, like an HBO or a Cinemax, something like that. So the Rainbow Randolph is Robin Williams. The new Smoochie character, I believe, is played by Ed Norton. The ex lover is Catherine Keener. Um, yeah, it's a movie. It's super underrated. I think underseen, under talked about. It's when Robin Williams was doing these interesting kind of more under the radar projects in the 2000s. Just going back, looking at his filmography here, when he was doing like The Final Cut, when he was doing Insomnia, when he was doing 1 Hour Photo, like those types of films, you know what I mean? Like his more serious types of films, more off the beat types of movies. After we had gotten a healthy dose of what we know Robin Williams to be, with his '90s run, um, he kind of just ventured out and did more, stuff he wanted to do, I guess, more challenging stuff and more different stuff. Um, yeah, I miss him every day. We talk about celebrities we lose all the time, celebrities that pass away that we miss, um, their presence on screen, their presence in the world. Robin Williams for me is one of them, and the way in which his life ended was incredibly sad and incredibly tragic. Um, and for someone who gave us so much of himself, so much joy over the years, to go out, to end in the way his life ended is truly, truly tragic, truly tragic. But my goodness, Death to Smoochie, I didn't think we'd ever see this movie on Blu-ray ever, and it finally has come out. So good for Shout Studios, way to go! You've got my money, Shout Studios. You've got my money. So Death to Smoochie, The Last Unicorn, um, the classic animated film, is getting a 4K UHD release. I believe it was released by Shout on Blu-ray several years ago, so it's getting a 4K of that. It's a Rankin and Bass, who did The Hobbit, which I have on VHS actually. On VHS comes a magical adventure with an all-star cast, including Mia Farrow, Jeff Bridges, Christopher Lee, Alan Arkin, Angela Lansbury, and it's got unforgettable songs from the rock band America. Very cool. I'm pretty sure many people have seen The Last Unicorn. Upon hearing that she may be the very last of her kind on Earth, a unicorn, Mia Farrow, goes in search of others like her. Her quest won't be easy, as it leads her straight to the evil King Haggard, portrayed by Christopher Lee, and his infamous Red Bull. And the journey is made even more complicated when, to protect her from the envious wrath of Haggard, a spell is cast to turn the unicorn into Lady Amalthea, a young human woman. But with his new body comes new thoughts and feelings, such as love for Haggard's son, Prince Lear, Jeff Bridges. Will Malthea get lost inside this new body? Will she meet the fate of the other unicorns? Or will she be able to defeat Haggard and his Red Bull with the aid of her friends? Uh, very yeah, it's a classic film. It's a really classic animated film. Moving on, we've got the Delta Force. This is I believe this is a canon film from the 80s. I think this is directed by Menachem Golan, if I remember. Yes, it is Menachem Golan. So this is a famous Chuck Norris film starring Lee Marvin, Martin Balsam, Robert Forster's in the film. It's just a classic 80s, romp. It really is. It got a Blu-ray release a few times over the years. It got one by MGM back in 2012. It got one by Scorpion Releasing, which was a Roman Flix exclusive from 2020. Yeah, it's the Delta Force. It's classic Chuck Norris 80s stuff. If you know the Canon group, this is their MO. Canon films from the 80s, this is their thing. Just kind of mindless action that put butts in seats and sold tickets. That's what they were all about. All those Chuck Norris films. Okay, so it looks like Dragonheart's getting a 4K Blu-ray Steelbook. Hackers getting 4K Blu-ray Steelbook. These are just re-releases. Pee-wee's Playhouse, the late Paul Rubens Pee-wee's Playhouse is getting the television series is getting a Blu-ray release. That's cool. Observe and Report, an underrated comedy, is getting a Blu-ray release. And of course they don't have it here for me to click on, so I've got to click on the picture. Yeah, this came out in what, 2009? Yeah, 2009. Observe and Report. Um, it takes place at a mall. Seth Rogen plays a mall cop. It's just funny. I think it's a funny thing. Seth Rogen, Ray Liotta, Michael Pena, and Faris. Jesse Plemons is in the film. I think it's a funny movie. Observe and Report. It's been on Blu-ray and DVD for years. It's probably been on cable a bunch of times. It's probably streaming right now somewhere. I always thought it was funny, so I thought I would mention that it's getting a Shout Select release, which is really cool. So moving on from all the Shout stuff, we've shouted it all out. So now let's move on to Radiance. Radiance, that is the tab that I closed out when I meant to close out the one for Fun City. Well, live and learn, live and learn. So let's move over. Let's go back to Radiance's site, and they've got a few interesting releases. And I think this is their. Let me see. Is this their August or September releases? They're so far ahead of the game. Let's see. This is their September releases. Holy heck! You want to see a label that I really need to get caught up on? We've got some Radiance stuff. Yeah. So here we go. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4 films that they're coming out with just from themselves, and there's one that's coming out through. I want to say, is that Raro? Who's putting this out? I have no idea. Oh, Grindhouse Releasing. My bad. So Grindhouse Releasing. So first up here is Tattooed Life. Then we have A Man on His Knees. We Still Kill the Old Way, and A Quiet Place in the Country. And then the one that's being put out by Grindhouse Releasing is Death Game. But I want to concentrate on the Radiance ones. But I thought I would just throw that last one in there just as an extra surprise. It's the cherry on top of the sundae. So Tattooed Life is a very interesting film. Really good film. It's a film by Seijun Suzuki. Immediately buy. Immediately buy. A must buy for me. I have a Seijun Suzuki section in my collection. I've got to get more of his stuff. My biggest regret in collecting, or one of my biggest regrets in collecting of all time, is not getting his Seijun Suzuki early years box sets from Arrow. They are long out of print and go for a ton on eBay. Just absurd amount of money on eBay. I know because I looked this past weekend just to see what the prices were looking like. Absurd money, like hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, this is wild. This is wild. So Arrow, if you're listening, please re-release those. Do something, because we're drowning here. The Taisho Trilogy box set. You can still get the limited edition of that on eBay. You can still find that. If you want the standard edition, you can buy that one as well. But me, I love going for limited edition stuff because that's just what I prefer. Very interesting stuff. Seijun Suzuki lived. Oh man, I think he lived almost nearly 100. He passed away a few years ago. Great director. He directed, of course, two films that I'm pretty sure people know of. The ones that are on the criteria that are on Criterion. That we actually just mentioned on a recent Unwatch Pile with our buddy Johnny Pomato. Uh, Tokyo is it Tokyo Drifter? Yeah, Tokyo Drifter. And what's the other one? I almost said Band of Outsiders. It's not Branded to Kill. So we got Branded to Kill and um, Tokyo Drifter, are probably two more well-known films of his. There's a few more here on Criterion. Gate of Flesh, Fighting Elegy, Story of a Prostitute. These are all I think just have DVD releases. I think he's got one in the Nikatsu Eclipse series box set. Yeah, take aim at the police van. So I would love for all those to get Blu-ray releases. Come on, Criterion, give me more Seijun Suzuki on Blu-ray. But going back to Tattooed Life. So let me click on Tattooed Life. So immediate must buy. Uh, and let's see, Tetsuo. Tetsuo, a low-level yakuza, is double-crossed by his boss and attacked. His younger brother Kenji, uh, let's see, an aspiring artist with no connections to crime comes to his aid and kills Tetsuo's assailant. Fearing repercussions from the Yakuza, they flee to Manchuria, where they risk coming under suspicion of rival gangs. Seijun Suzuki remains loyal to the convention of the Yakuza film, but Tattooed Life contains flashes of his later creative genius, including a final act of explosive visual excess that has become one of the director's all-time classic scenes. So yeah, you get a really interesting film here where you've got these brothers who are basically on the run, and also they kind of hook themselves onto another gang. But of course, trying to outrun your past tends to have your past eventually catching up to you, and that can lead to a lot of problems, especially when you're dealing with the Yakuza. So that's what this movie is about. It's really good. I really like this movie a lot. And of course, the Tattooed Life is in reference to, being in the Yakuza. You tend to have a lot of, tattoos and stuff like that. Yeah, this is a limited edition special. There's special features here. There's an audio commentary with William Carroll, author of Seijun Suzuki and Post-War Cinema from 2024. Newly edited archival interview with Seijun Suzuki. Newly edited archival interview with art director Takio Kimura. There's a movie trailer. Reversible sleeve. There's a limited edition booklet. Limited edition of 3,000 copies. Yeah, this is coming out September 23rd. I didn't get to see the movie A Man on His Knees, but mistaken as a witness to a crime, Nino learns from a friend that he has been put on a mafia hit list and is being stalked by an assassin. A man with a troubled past, Nino knows only too well what he faces and uses all his strength and cunning to keep himself and his family alive. Featuring stunning performance from both leads, Damiani applies his trademark realism and socio-political commentary to A Man on His Knees, charting Nino's desperation as he refuses to kneel before the power of organized crime. Excuse me. So we've got another Italian film directed by Damiano Damiani. I know, just from talking with Fran, the two times we've had him here on the show, he loves Italian cinema like this. So they put out a lot of these films at Radiance. And I trust, what he's got, what his tastes are. We've got archival interviews from the stars of the film. We've got a new interview from the author of Regia Damiano Damiani, Alberto Pezzotta. And I think that's it. Reversible sleeve, booklet, stuff like that. 3,000 copies. Next two films are both directed by the same director, and it's a director who people are probably familiar with, or at least I'm familiar with. And this is who is it? Is it Elio Petri? Elio Petri? Of course, it would be nice if it was here. Yes, Elio Petri. So We Still Kill the Old Way. Interesting film. First of all, that title is hard as nails. Hard as nails. After two men are killed on a hunting trip, a lonely professor takes it upon himself to investigate what he believes was not a simple honor killing. As his search intensifies, politics and the church become implicated in a complex conspiracy orchestrated by a powerful criminal organization. So we've got somebody who decides to get himself into things he probably shouldn't be getting into. Um, he there's this murder of these two people who are out hunting on a trip, and this professor decides to kind of investigate it himself. And what he finds out is there's more to it than meets the eye. There's more to it that's going on. There's political implications. There's the church is involved in it, so more political implications. It gets in over his head, essentially. It gets in over his head. But I wanted to mention Elio Petri because people may be familiar with his film Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion, which was put out by Criterion. So you've probably heard of his work before. And this is the dual format edition of this film here that was put out in the early 2010s. And I've had this in my collection for many years, probably about 10 years or so. Great film. This film's a masterpiece. And he likes these kind of investigative types of films. That seems to be Elio Petri's thing. I have to say, I may be losing my voice here. So, the next film, also directed by Elio Petri? Yes, Elio Petri. Is A Quiet Place in the Country, which is vastly different than both the Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion, as well as the film I just mentioned in We Still Kill the Old Way. This film is vastly different. So, Leonardo, portrayed by Franco Nero, is celebrated artist plagued by nightmares which stop him from completing his work. His agent and sometimes lover, Flavia, portrayed by Vanessa Redgrave, encourages him to relax, so he buys a country villa. Once there, he begins tracing the story of the previous owner while Flavia's presence in the house seems to awaken something as she encounters one mysterious accident after another. Part ghost story, part meditation on the creative process told through the excesses of the 1960s, Elio Petri brilliantly fuses these ideas in ways that are at times shocking, yet thought-provoking in their investigation of art, sex, madness, set to an eerie score by the one and only Ennio Morricone. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So I watched this movie, and it is a trip. It is a trip of a film because um the character of Leonardo, Franco Nero, he becomes entranced by this villa, this creepy, dilapidated villa that was like bombed in World War II. And the story goes that there's a woman who died during that time violently, and her spirit is haunting this villa. Is it true? Is it happening? Or is this guy just kind of losing his mind be- because he's this kind of radical artist? I'll let you watch the movie to find out. But there's a lot of surreal moments in here. There's a lot of creepy things that go on. It's a very sexual film as well. Um, this it's just a lot of excess in it. But I guess that's the whole point of like kind of exploring the excess of the 1960s, the drug use, the free sex, all of these things. Kind of are themes in this movie. But yeah, a trip of a film, completely different than the previous film and completely different than this film here. Just yeah, just wild. So that is Radiance. Um, but a good slate of films from Radiance. I'm excited about all the stuff that they're doing, but I got to catch up. I got to catch up on a lot of their stuff from late last year, and I got to catch up on the stuff they've been doing this year already. Like I said, they're already announcing September releases. We're in June. I can't process September right now. I'm barely able to process June, and we're already 10 days into it. So come on, give me some time here. A lot of this can be overwhelming. If you're so fixated in this world of collecting, it's easy to be overwhelmed by all of this. It really is. But you gotta be patient. You gotta take your time. Don't get scared. This is it. Don't get scared now. So let's move on to what we got next. I'll keep referring back to my notes because there's just so much stuff. So let's go to Arrow. Hey now, hey now. Arrow decided to give us a double dose of goodness. Oh, they spoiled us. Oh, they spoiled us so much. So let me get up. Let me save the best. I'll save the best for last. I will save the best for last. And we all know what the best is. So let's not kid ourselves here. We all know what's going on here. So let's go with their slate for August. Their slate for August is an interesting slate. A lot of upgrades from previous stuff they put out on Blu-ray, but a surprise. And the surprise was Robert Rodriguez's The Mexico trilogy is getting a release. Now, don't go crazy now. Um, because it's only a 4K release of Desperado. The other two films in the trilogy set, being El Mariachi and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, are only getting Blu-ray releases. But we got a lot of extra features. I have I should have brought them. They're on my shelf in the Robert Rodriguez section, but I have the double feature Blu-ray disc of El Mariachi and Desperado, and I have Once Upon a Time in Mexico on Blu-ray. And the first one doesn't have a lot of special features, but all of those special features carry over. Plus, we're getting more special features too, I believe. But yeah, the highlight in here is the 4K of Desperado. Now, I don't know why we're not getting a 4K for El Mariachi or Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Perhaps it's a rights issue. Perhaps it's a logistics issue with just producing a box set of this magnitude and of this and of this size, and also price wise, if you got a trilogy 4K set of these films, it would be expensive for us as consumers, I guess. So they're kind of saving our wallets. But if you've never seen El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, I highly recommend going to see them. I think it's the cornerstone of Robert Rodriguez's career. The first film he famously shot for a, just no money whatsoever. I think it was a couple of $1,000s. If you're interested in kind of the making of process of that, um, read his book Rebel Without a Film Crew. I think it's called. I have it, where it goes through the making of the process of making that movie and how he funded it by signing up for like psychiatric like tests where like you go to a place, you sign a waiver, and like they give you like medication to test out and see what happens to you, things like that, or they put you into like psychological experiments and they pay you for that. They pay you for your time and whatnot. And how he made that movie for no money at all, absolutely no money, like a couple of $1,000. Um, and it ended up, yeah, he made it. It says $7,000, which I think that's about right. And how he was going around trying to sell the movie, and how he eventually ended up selling it to Columbia Pictures, and that kind of kickstarted his career. He was going around like selling like a VHS copy of it. That was his master tape, was on VHS. Wild stuff. But man, that's guerrilla filmmaking at its bedrock. Oh, incredible. Then Desperado is kind of his big budgeted version of that movie, starring Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. And then Once Upon a Time in Mexico is the follow up to Desperado. Great film. Also, we got Antonio Banderas reprising his role in that film. Yeah, I love these movies. I've seen them so many times. Great. This is a great release. Um, yeah, this is a 4 disc set. I think it's a US and UK release. There's a for the fourth disc here, I think is Once Upon a Time in Mexico, the Blu-ray release of it. Yeah. So we've got El Mariachi on Blu-ray, we've got Desperado on Blu-ray and 4K, so 2 discs there. And the fourth disc is Once Upon a Time in Mexico on Blu-ray. Okay. Um, yeah, fascinating. Just fascinating. And these are all, let's see, 4K rest presentations in Dolby Vision of Desperado. Yeah, and there's a bunch of special features for each film. Or there's a few extra features for each film, not a bunch. But you know what I mean. So let me move on. So we're getting Silence of the Lambs is getting a uh 4K upgrade, and I want to say um This is an upgrade. Hold on. This is going to annoy me. So has the Silence of the Lambs never gotten a Blu-ray release in the UK? Interesting. Well, it's gotten the Criterion Blu-ray release. No, it hasn't. It hasn't gotten anything. So I think the Silence of the Lambs is getting a Blu-ray release for the first time in the UK. That's what it looks like to me. Yeah, it's getting a Blu-ray release and getting a 4K release from them. Um, Interesting. I wish I kind of had looked that up beforehand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the dead space here, but I'm just kind of flabbergasted about that. It's kind of taking me back a bit. So, The Silence of the Lambs has gotten many releases here in the US. It's gotten a Blu-ray release from Criterion. It's gotten a 4K release from Kino. Here now in the UK, it's getting a a 4K release and a Blu-ray release in August. It's coming with a bunch of special features, brand new special features in here as well. Um, Brand new two new visual essays, brand new commentary, um, plus a bunch of other, I think, archival bonus feature stuff. So that's fascinating. I did not know that. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just so taken aback by that. So taken aback by that. So um, we've got Heather's is getting a 4K UHD upgrade. I know Heather's had a Blu-ray release in the UK because um Arrow put it out. Arrow put it out. Sorry, I'm starting to fade here. I'm starting to fade. Um, but we're making our way through it. We're making our way through it. Um, yeah, Arrow had put out a special edition back in 2018 of Heather's. This is a must buy for me. I have Heather's on an old, like, oh gee, about an old Blu-ray from like the late 2000s. Let me see, Heather's. Yeah, from 2011. 2000, no, yeah, there was a 2008 Blu-ray release of Heather's, and then there was a 2011 Blu-ray release, and then there was a 2008. Yeah, I said 8. Yeah, 2008, 2011, 2019. I think they were all the same disc, all the same Blu-ray disc, from what I remember. So this is a must upgrade for me because I have that old release from like 2011 or maybe even 2008. I'm not sure which edition I have. It's on my shelf over there. Um, but yeah, I just because it's a 4K restoration from the original camera negative by Arrow themselves, and it comes with it has a bunch of special features. I love that movie. I think Heather's is great. You've got you got young Winona Ryder as well as young um Christian Slater. Just as they were coming up, as their stars were rising in the late 80s. Uh, Really good stuff, and there's a lot of interesting introspective teenage themes going on in that movie with a bit of a darker twist to it. Certainly things you couldn't get away with now in in teenage films and whatnot. Um, yeah, it's kind of also like this a dark comedic portion to it. But I love Heather's. Love Heather's. It's got a Dolby Vision HDR presentation of the film as well. Um, yeah, this is, I want this, and they're releasing a collection here, a collection of stuff I don't know anything about. I really didn't dive into. It's called Memento Mori, the Jorg Borgaret collection. Man, I probably butchered that. I do not speak German at all, obviously. And this is a box set that's done in the same style as the Shawscope sets. Keep that in mind in a second here. So, shocking and controversial, yet permeated with dark poetic beauty. The films of underground German author Jörg Borgert stand at the very intersection between art and exploitation. We've got, I believe, 4 films with 5 disc set. We've got Necromantic, Der Dotesking, Necromantic 2, and then Scram. And the fifth disc is a bonus disc that has Necromantic 2 extended cut, Necromantic 2 premiere footage with audio commentary by the director, plus some screen test footage, and then a short film directed by the director. Um, yeah, there's film version of the stage play written and co-directed by the director, called Captain Berlin versus Hitler. Wow. Okay. This is an interesting box set of someone I've never heard of before and whose work I've never heard of before. But the um the the packaging looks very enticing. It's a limited edition packaging incorporating an exclusive 100-page rigid book featuring new writings by Derek Carex, author of Sex, Murder, Art, the films of Your Burgeret, a a selection of archival essays, and the color debut of Necromantic comic book sequel, Son of Necromantic, exclusive bonus stick containing all the stuff I just said. Necromantic, a 16 millimeter film strip. That's cool. Necromantic 2, 16 millimeter film strip. Sorry. Yeah, wow, how interesting. How interesting. And if you've seen pictures of it, it's like an all black set. Looks very cool, very sleek. Very sleek. And then we've got something interesting. Let me scroll down to also there's a double feature here of The Woman and the Offspring. It's a 4K double feature. I don't know anything about either of these films, so we'll move past that right now because I want to get to When Titans Ruled the Earth 4K double feature edition. This is Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans, the films that came out starring Sam Worthington, not the original classic from the 80s that Warner Brothers has the rights to. Warner Brothers also has the rights to these two films. So this is part of the deal that Arrow has made with Warner Brothers, obviously. We learned that their first release is going to be The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the Guy Ritchie film. From that deal, I guess this is going to be their second release, When Titans Rule the Earth 4K uh, double feature edition. These films they're f- um, they're fine. They're blockbusters of their time, of that time frame. The late what was it, 2000 and when did the first one come out? 2010? Yeah, 2010, 2012. They're blockbusters from that time. That was at a time where they were trying to make Sam Worthington into the next big action star, the next big blockbuster star. This is obviously after he was in Avatar, the movie that's grossed like I don't know what the most money ever at the box office, whatever the case may be. Um, so they were trying to turn him into the next big movie star. Obviously, after that, he had also done the Terminator Salvation film around that time. You know what I mean? So they were trying to kind of, groom him into being the next big star. And it kind of didn't work. What we've learned now, I think, is that Sam Worthington is better doing indie work. He's better doing smaller work. I think that's where his abilities as an actor really shines, is doing stuff like that, not these big like over the top actions type of films. So that's that. I know people were kind of scratching their heads about it, but if Arrow has to put these out as part of that deal with Warner Brothers, go right ahead. Go right ahead. I don't, you know what I mean? It doesn't offend me in the least bit. I know people kind of get very gatekeepy about these things. They get offended. They say, "Oh, what is Arrow doing?" And I'm like, they're making deals with companies to put out things. That's what they're doing. They're doing things that all these boutique labels are trying to do. Put out quality products, really. So if this leads to other Warner Brothers films that we want to see being put out by Arrow, so be it. So be it. Let it roll. Let it ride. Here we go. So, speaking of things we want to see, you like that transition? I know I did. I wish Steven was here. Steven was here to like that. But we've got Shawscope Volume 3. Holy heck, it's been a couple of years since we've seen you, Shawscope. It's been a couple of years. Let's see. When did we see the last Shawscope Volume 2? 2022. Now, this is coming out November 26th, so mark that on your calendars. If you want to get that for the holiday season for yourself or for a significant other or for whomever, uh, that's when it's coming out. So I was talking a couple of days ago, actually, with the people on the Chasing Labels Facebook page. that with Shout Factory putting out all those box sets they put out last year, I didn't know if Arrow had anything left in the coffers to make a third set. Well, I was completely wrong. They must have heard me. They must have heard me. So we've got Volume 3, and I just so happen to have Volume 1 and 2 right next to me. Still here on my couch, ever present. Here's Volume 2, which everybody lost their minds over. No, here's Volume 1, sorry. Here's Volume 1, which everyone lost their mind over, and uh, they bought up thinking it was going to sell out, which it never sold out. You can still find copies of this limited edition online. You can find it on Orbit DVD. You can find it on Diabolic. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it everywhere. So here's Volume 1. Beautiful set here. And then I've got Volume... Oh, things are flying. Things are flying. Pretend you didn't see that. Pretend you didn't see that. So things are flying out of the set. Let me put this here ever so gently now. Almost knocked over my water. We almost had a water world party. So we've got Volume 2 here in a much more... Oh no, it's about as slippery. It's about as slippery. So Volume 2 in orange, and then Volume 3 is going to be in green. So we've got blue, orange, and green. So let me move this back ever so gingerly so things don't go flying out on me again in an embarrassing fashion. So no editing here. This is live. This is like Saturday Night Live. We don't edit things anymore. So let's get into what's in Shawscope Volume 3. So we've got... it would be nice if they had a list here, but they don't, so I will do it the old-fashioned way. So we've got 14 movies. This is going to be a 10 Blu-ray set and 1 CD. So we've got The One-Armed Swordsman, Return of the One-Armed Swordsman, The New One-Armed Swordsman, Lady Hermit, Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, The 14 Amazons, The Magic Blade, The Sentimental Swordsman, Clans of Intrigue, Jade Tiger, The Avenging Eagle, Killer Constable, Bastard, and then Bastard Swordsman. So we've got films here that range from 1967 to 1983. I can say this: I know The One-Armed Swordsman is good. I've actually seen The One-Armed Swordsman. It is good. I can say that. With this being announced so late in the game, this time I wasn't able to watch all these movies or watch many of them. But like I said, it's coming out November 26th, limited edition Blu-ray plus a CD. Yeah, this is going to be my number one priority for the holiday season. I can say that. So yeah, so that's Shawscope, that's Arrow. Man, they double spoiled us this time around. So let me close these tabs out. I think we've come to the final stage of this marathon. And I don't know about you guys, but I am tired. I may pass out after this. I can tell you doing this by myself is exhausting. It's exhausting. So please excuse me as I refresh myself. So we come upon Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome, of course, is in the aftermath of their Midway to Black Friday sale. And in the aftermath of their Midway to Black Friday sale is their partner labels month. So we are in the partner labels month. We are in June, which is also my birthday month as well. It's also Pride month, and like I mentioned earlier, a lot of things going on this month. So with their partner labels month going on, June 1st came around and they announced a bunch of partner label titles. And I watched a bunch of them, and we're going to talk about them. That will be how we close out the show. Let me close out some of these tabs. So we've got a slew of titles here. Let's see, that's 10, 15, I think that's 19 titles, I think? Somewhere around there. But anyway, let me read these bad boys off. So from ETR Media, we have the Arrested Development documentary project. From Canny, we have Beijing Watermelon, Darkstar, Bottom Feeders. Saturn's Core, David the Rock Nelson Collection, Volume 1. Music Box Selects, we have NEO. XYZ Films, we have Feed Me. Reminds me of Little Shop of Horrors from the 80s. Feed Me Seymour. From Film Movement, we have Kamikaze 89. From IFC Films, we have Mr. Lonely. From the Film Desk, we have The Plot Against Harry. From Memory, we have Rat Film. From Canadian International Pictures, our friends over there, we've got Roadkill. From Shudder, we have The Sadness. From Film Movement, once again, we have Shanghai Triad. And from Icarus Films, we have Six in Paris. From Subculture USA, we've got Supermarket. From Utopia, we have The Sweet East. And from Yellow Veil Pictures, we have To the Moon. From Decalogue, we have Tramps. And from Circle Collective, we have With Love and a Major Organ. Now, I didn't get to see all of these movies just because time is what it is. I always wish I could stop time and I could watch every single movie because that would just be awesome. That's what I would want to do with my life. But we can't do that. So let me start with where I started at when it came to watching all these. And let me start with the Arrested Development documentary project. This was a movie that came out in 2013, right before the show was revived on Netflix. So it's kind of relatively dated when it comes to the information about Arrested Development. So for those of you who don't know, Arrested Development, in my opinion, is one of my all-time favorite shows. It's a show that I rewatched so many times on DVD. I think it's one of the greatest sitcoms and TV series ever, at least the first 3 seasons. And it was unceremoniously ended and canceled. It was never had a big audience. It never had any type of fanfare. But man, it was amazing. It's some of the best writing and acting when it comes to a sitcom that you've ever seen. It came out in 2003. It initially ended in 2006. It only ran for originally 3 seasons, and then it had a revival on Netflix. It had a revival on Netflix, um, and the revival is notorious for not being as good as the original episodes were, or the original run was. But this documentary is kind of a celebration of those original 3 seasons because that's all they had at the time that the documentary was made. And they interview like various people from the cast. They interview the creator, Mitch Hurwitz, and the process of the making of that series and how they pitched it and how they made it, how the writing went, how the actors were and what the actors thought of it, and all this kind of stuff. The usual talking heads documentary thing, but without the context of what we know now of it getting a revival. And they interview fans of it as well. And yeah, it's fine. You know, it's a fine documentary. If you're a fan of the show, it's gonna make you wanna watch the show again. That's what it did for me. So, and the revival on Netflix, like I said, we got 2 more seasons. We got a season 4 and a season 5, and I think season 5 was 2018, 2019. They aired it in 2 parts. And like I said, it wasn't quite the same. You know, it was the original 3 series was lightning in a bottle. It was perfection. It was just everything. For those of you who don't know the show Arrested Development, I mean, watch it. Watch it any way you can. Watch it if it's streaming. Buy the DVDs. I've had the DVDs in my collection since like 2007. I think I've had the DVDs in my collection, and I've watched them over and over and over again. The show stars Jason Bateman, Michael Cera, Will Arnett, Portia de Rossi, Alia Shawkat, Tony Hale, Jeffrey Tambor, David Cross, Jessica Walter. Ron Howard did the narration. Henry Winkler was in the show. Liza Minnelli, Mae Whitman, Ed Begley Jr., Isla Fisher is in a couple of the Netflix episodes later on. Man, it was a show. It's a show. It's incredible. It's about a dysfunctional family called the Bluth family, headed by Michael Bluth, who is Jason Bateman's character, and he's the oldest brother in a family of misfits, just misfits, and each of them have their own unique personality. It's incredible. It's incredible. But this documentary is cool, covering all that kind of stuff. Why the show's unique. Why the show. For the longest time, we thought we were going to get a movie because that's what they teased us with at the end of the series. But it ended up getting the revival on Netflix. But yeah, this is a cool documentary if you love Arrested Development. it's worth a watch. The Rest Development documentary project. I think it's available on Tubi right now. Check it out if you're a fan. Don't watch it if you haven't watched the series. It'll spoil things for you. It'll spoil things. Don't do that. But next we've got Connie, which is Beijing Watermelon. Beijing Watermelon. This is a interesting, beautiful film. It's a movie that you can stream now on the Criterion channel. Actually has it, and it feels like a Criterion film, like a movie that the Criterion would have put out themselves. That's the type of quality of the movie, I think. Um, yeah, it's directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi. Nobuhiko Obayashi directed the movie House, which Criterion has put out. There you go. There's the Criterion connection right there. Uh, Nothing like the movie House. Nothing like it at all. The complete polar opposite, actually. This is kind of a family drama. It's a family drama. So Shunzu is a popular greengrocer in a town near Tokyo. His life and the lives of his wife Michi and their two children undergo a dramatic change when he encounters Lee, a poor college student from China. So this man runs a small greengrocer shop in in a in a in a town near Tokyo, and there's a bunch of students from China who emigrate over there to go to school, and he ends up kind and the grocer Shunzo ends up becoming a surrogate father to these students. Like he ends up helping them with like rides. He ends up helping them with like paperwork for them to be able to study there. He ends up helping them find places to live. He gives them food and discounts at his store so that because they're poor college students for them to eat. He becomes their surrogate father. But what happens is he spends so much time caring for these kids and these students that he kind of neglects his job. He neglects his store. He neglects his family, and he's torn between both of them. And so bad things happen because of that. And it guys kind of goes to show you that sometimes being so caring, being so giving of oneself can take away from yourself and can lead to bad things happening to you. So you need to strike that balance in your life of giving to yourself as well as giving to others. And yeah, it's a beautiful film in that regard, but then it's also a film about what the benefits are of being kind, of being generous with your time and your effort and your care. And it goes to show that being a surrogate father to these kids, does have benefits to it in the end. It's a beautiful movie in that regard. The movie is from 1989. It clocks in at 135 minutes. It's a little long. I say the last 15 minutes kind of drag a little bit because we kind of reach the inevitable conclusion and it kind of extends past that in an interesting, different way than the rest of the movie was unfolding like. I'm being very cagey about it. I'm being very ambiguous about it because I kind of want people to see this movie on your own. Like I said, it is streaming on the Criterion Channel. Beautiful film. I really, really liked it a lot. One of the best films I saw out of all the films that I watched when it came to this crop of titles. Um, let's move on. Let's move on. Highly recommended. Kenny always does good work. Kenny always does good movies. Um, let me see what else we've got here. Most anticipated, we got more Humboldt Hunt. My most anticipated release this month is Mondo Macabro's Max Pekka said, yes, I saw that Mondo Macabro had some releases. And um, I failed to put it in my notes, but go check out Mondo Macabro stuff. Like we interviewed Jared Honor from over there, who's one of like the two people working over at Mondo Macabro. Uh, and they're starting to release their stuff now that they announced a while ago. Check out their stuff. Really good stuff. I had actually added one to my watch list. I never got around to it. There was just so much. As it is, this episode is way longer than I wanted it to be. But also thank you, Humboldt Horror Honey, for the vote of confidence. Vote of confidence. I'm continuing to go here. So what is it? I just mentioned Beijing Watermelon. Let's move on to Enio. So Because this is very brief. I want to mention I did not get to see this. I also wanted to mention this. This is actually super important. A lot of the limited editions for this crop of partner label OCN titles sold very quickly. A lot of them are sold out now, and so a lot of these releases only have standard editions left. And I think the Sadness is sold out completely. So Beijing Watermelon, which I just mentioned, is only down to standard editions, which I am really upset about not pre-ordering. But have no fear, Diabolic will be getting their usual crop. Orbit DVD will be getting the usual crop of limited editions, but it will be a small crop. So keep your eyes out at the end of the month at those two websites because that's when they will get their shipments in, and you'll be able to get some of these ones that are out of stock. But back to a Neo, which also is the limited edition is out of stock uh, is Music Box Selects. This is a documentary about Ennio Morricone. That's all you need to know. It's a documentary about Ennio Morricone, the absolute legend. It's Giuseppe Tornatore, director of the beloved Cinema Paradiso, turned his camera on his longtime collaborator, Ennio Morricone, in a moving and comprehensive, prolific, indefatigable composer. So you've got the director of Cinema Paradiso doing a documentary about Ennio Morricone. And you've got interviews here from Ennio Morricone himself, Quentin Tarantino, Clint Eastwood, Hans Zimmer, John Williams, Dario Argento, Wong Kar-wai, Oliver Stone, Joan Baez, Bruce Springsteen. Um, yeah, yeah, this is incredible. It's an incredible documentary. So check that out. Next, we've got Kamikaze 89 or Kamikaze 1989, put out by Film Movement. Now, this is a German film. Yes, it's directed by Wolf Grimm, starring Rainer Werner Fassbender, and I think either one of his last roles that he acted in or his last role that he acted in when he passed away. It came out in 1982, and Fassbender passed away in 1982. So that would lead me to believe that to be true. So this movie, it says right here, in his final acting role, legendary auteur Rainer Werner Fassbender, clad in an iconic leopard skin suit. Yes, he's wearing a leopard skin suit, stars as hard-boiled detective Janssen in a neon-drenched futuristic dystopia ruled by a multimedia conglomerate called the Combine. Janssen is sent on a labyrinthian investigation when their headquarters is threatened with mass destruction by a phantom bomber. This essential cult classic features a hypnotic electronic score by Tangerine Dreams, Edward Froese, as well as gleefully mind-bending production design. Yeah, this is a weird, futuristic, dystopian German film from the 80s starring um, Rainer Werner Fassbender as a hard-boiled detective. Yeah, it's about as weird and dystopian and unhinged as you would expect. um, check it out. Check this movie out. Yeah, it's unique. It's unique. Um, Man, let's move on from Kamikaze. Let's move straight over to another interesting director-centric thing. This also only has standard editions left as of this recording. This is Mr. Lonely. This sold out very quickly. This and The Sadness sold out very quickly. This is a Harmony Korine film, 2007. This is an interesting film. So only Harmony Korine could weave Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe, her daughter Shirley Temple, and flying nuns into a hypnotical, funny, and truly poignant tale of the instability behind fanaticism and the redemption we can hope to find in one another. The film follows a lonely Michael Jackson impersonator who is invited by a beautiful Marilyn Monroe impersonator to a commune in the Scottish Highlands full of other impersonators, including the Queen of England, Madonna, Sammy Davis Jr., and James Dean. In a parallel storyline, the incomparable Werner Herzog plays a Latin American priest who learns his missionary nuns can literally fly. Yes, this movie is as weird as you think it is. The person who plays this Michael Jackson impersonator is Diego Luna. The Marilyn Monroe impersonator is Samantha Morton. Um, so wow, just wow. What a wild movie. but it's from Harmony Korine. It's going to be wild. It's going to be unique. It's going to be completely different than anything you would expect it to be. This was before he did Trash Humpers, which got the Blu-ray release from I think Umbrella. I should probably look that up instead of talking out of nowhere. So Trash Humpers, um, yeah, so Trash Humpers came out in 2009, and this came out in 2007. And then of course, Spring Breakers would come out after this, way after this actually. So yeah, Harmony Korine, unique director, incredible director. Um, in my opinion, I think he's incredibly unique director. I know a lot of people don't like Spring Breakers. Trash Humpers is not even a movie. It's something else. And this movie here is also something else. There's a poignancy and a point to the movie that's interesting. The whole thing with Werner Herzog as a priest is wild to me. He's just a priest, and these nuns keep jumping out of a plane and they keep surviving. And they think it's like this miracle that's going on. I don't know. It's a side plot. What a wild film called Mr. Lonely. Oh man. You gotta see it to experience it for yourself. But it's only got standard edition left, so get it while you can. Next is The Plot Against Harry. The Plot Against Harry. This is streaming on the Criterion Channel right now. This is a movie that is an interesting 70s kind of dark comedy. You'll understand when I say it in a moment. So Harry Plotnick, uh, a New York City's numbers runner, is back on the streets after a 9-month prison stint. Looking to reclaim his turf along with his sidekick Max, Harry accidentally crashed into the car of his ex-wife and his daughter, who he hasn't seen in decades. Caught in a whirlwind of Jewish family life and all kinds of New York strivers, Harry encounters mobsters, lawyers, caterers, an overbearing sister, another daughter he has never met, cops, rabbis, and radio hosts. Discouraged by laughless test screenings, Michael Reamer pulled the film from release. The film initially resurfaced in 1989 and was immediately heralded as one of the greatest all-American independent films, re-released theatrically in 2023 and recognized by a new generation. The Plot Against Harry is a true masterpiece. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece. It's good though. It's interesting. It's something I thought that Fun City would release. Like it feels like a Fun City Editions release, but it's getting released here through the Film Desk. It's an interesting film, concentrating on a Jewish gangster in the 70s, a low-level Jewish gangster in the 70s who just gets out of prison, like the synopsis says, and he's dealing with family troubles, and he's also trying to go straight because he's on parole, and he wants to get involved in a catering service company with his ex-brother-in-law, and he needs to be straight to do that because he's also still under investigation. So he's a man in a crossroads, in life between trying to be straight, trying to be better, trying to also kind of be in the old life that he was living. Um, but it's also very funny as well. Very funny. Like the family drama is funny. His family members are kind of eccentric. Like the sister's this super overbearing, annoying person. He himself is dealing with like annoying people all the time. There's stuff going on. It's a funny movie, good movie. Like I said, an undiscovered gem that I guess I just like was gone for a while, then resurfaced. Yeah, it's good. I definitely recommend it. It's streaming on the Criterion Channel as of right now, so check it out there if you can. Let me get the runtime here. It's an 81-minute film, relatively short film. It's got a Q&A by it's got a Michael Reamer Q&A from 2023. That's going to be interesting. It's got Michael Reamer and Robert M. Young in conversation in 2005. Michael Reamer audio interview with critic Nicholas Sada from the Cannes Film Festival from 1990, and a new trailer, 32-page booklet as well. This is something I'm definitely interested in. Definitely interested. I don't have any releases from the Film Desk, I don't think. But I would like to. Next, we have Canadian International Pictures' Roadkill. This is another film that feels very much like Fun City. It feels like the movie Radio On. It's got that sense of indie, um, indie film vibes, like super indie film vibes, like just kind of, you know, you. you're not really following for the strength of the plot, you know what I mean? So, at loose ends with life in Toronto, Ramona is abruptly dispatched to the wilds of Northern Ontario by her mercenary record promoter boss to retrieve the Children of Paradise, a wayward rock band that has disappeared mid-tour. There's only one problem: she doesn't know how to drive. Armed with only a Walkman and the clothes on her back, she embarks on a journey that quickly introduces her to a cavalcade of oddball characters, including a cab driver with ties to Elvis, a film director in search of a muse, a singer who's lost his voice, and an aspiring serial killer. Determined to make it big with the help of this motley crew, Ramona hopes to push beyond her limits and mount a rock and roll show for the ages. Yeah, the movie's got a great like rock and roll soundtrack. Um, yeah, they call it a punk style, freewheeling punk style rock, punk rock style. That's really the style of the movie. Um, it's got an appearance by Joey Ramone at one point. Um, yeah, it's an interesting road movie, really, where this woman just kind of gets kind of gets lost in northern Canada, trying to find this rock group and trying to bring them back, and then trying to like get them to continue their tour and stuff. Yeah, it's such a time capsule film of that time. You know what I mean? Late 80s. There's no cell phones. There's no way to communicate with people. There's no email. There's no nothing. There's payphones, and that's about it. That's how you contacted people. If you didn't hear from somebody, chances are you didn't know if you were ever gonna hear from them. It was an interesting time to be alive. I'll tell you that. The time before this instant world of communication we have now. Oh man, it's like light years away. Light years away. But this movie is really good. This is loaded with special features. It's scanned and restored in 4K. It's got a new commentary. It's got an archival audio commentary. It's got a new interview. It's got one, two, three, four new interviews on here. Very cool stuff. It's got a 48-minute documentary about the making of Roadkill from 2006. That's really cool. This is one that, man, I hate myself for not pre-ordering it because they were only down to the standard editions as well. So get on that, check that out. Next is the Shudder release of The Sadness. I'm pretty sure many people have seen this already because it's initially sold out, and it looks like they added more copies because it was limited to 2,000, and then it was sold out, and then the standards sold out. So I think they've added more standards to it because it sold out in like 2 days. Like it was really quick. This movie is one of the most violent unhinged films I've ever seen. It's streaming on Shudder right now. You can watch it. It's a Shudder original, and it is one of the most violent films. Oh, brutal, brutal film. If you are squeamish when it comes to gore and stuff like that, don't watch this movie. Don't watch this movie. So, after a year of combating a pandemic with relatively benign symptoms, a frustrated nation finally lets its guard down. This is when the virus spontaneously mutates, giving rise to a mind-altering plague. The streets erupt into violence and depravity as those infected are driven to enact the most cruel and ghastly things they can think of. Murder, torture, mutilation are only the beginning. A young couple is pushed to the limits of sanity as they try to reunite amid the chaos. The age of civility and order is no more. There is only the sadness. So, this movie came out in 2021. As you may have guessed, it's definitely a metaphor for COVID. Definitely a metaphor for COVID and the shutdowns and the worldwide panic and chaos that ensued because of it and the seriousness of it all. It's definitely a not so sudden hint at that homage, but the movie takes it to the extreme. Like this brutality like you've never seen on screen before in here. It's pretty rough. It's pretty. But be honest, I've got a high tolerance for this, and even I was like, man, this is rough. This is rough. So, this is a 4K UHD release. I don't think I mentioned that. It's got two audio commentaries, actually three audio commentaries. Very interesting. Four previously released featurettes, it's got new featurette, it's got a new video essay by Sam Deegan. It's got two short films on here by the director Rob Jabaz. But yeah, that's The Sadness, and that's kind of the fastest selling one. Next we have Shanghai Triad. And I have to include this because this is a film directed by Yang Jimo or Yang Yimou. This is included on the Yang Yimou and Gong Li box set put out by Imprint. So if you have that Imprint box set already, you already own this movie. Congratulations, you are one of the lucky ones. Hired to be a servant, hired to be a servant to pamper nightclub singer and mob mall Jing Zhenbao Gong Li, a naive teenager Shuxing Wang Xiaoshou is thrust into the glamorous and deadly demimonde of Shanghai's crime syndicate. Over the course of 7 days, Shuxing observes mounting tensions as Triad boss Tang begins to suspect traitors amongst his ranks and rivals for Zhang Jibao's affections. Zhang's inventive take on the gang. Zhang's inventive take on the gangster film is assured and attention grabbing, and Gong's central performance, a portrait of a capricious and indulgent woman who gains depth as we watch her, is one of the finest. Those were blurbs from from Variety and Chicago Tribune. But this is a film directed by Zhang Yimou. If you're a fan of his, um, you may want to get this movie. I know I am. I may pick this up if I can't track down that Gong Li set. It goes for very high price on eBay. I know there's a standard edition, but like I said earlier, that limited edition tag always gets me. It always gets me. I can never resist. But this movie is very, very good. What you get is what I didn't tell you is that this kid who's the servant, is a young kid, like a teenager. So you're seeing this gangster life through the eyes of a teenager, someone who's brand new to this world. And you're seeing how, you're seeing the violence that he has to witness. You're seeing the interplay of the boss and his cronies that he has to witness. You're seeing the way Gong Li is treated. You're seeing all these things from his perspective, and the way Zhang Yimou, the way he shoots movies, the way he uses the visual medium, it has a very ethereal light, like almost like a paintbrush, like a painter, just like a light on the breeze type of filmmaking that I've always noticed. And so the film has this light quality to it while it's delivering heavy things. Just a unique form of filmmaking that I've noticed from him, a unique style from him. And this movie has that. I think it's a very good film, very good film. So that is Shanghai Triad from Film Movement. So let me move on from there. Some of these others I've seen and didn't get to see. One I didn't get to see is Six in Paris. The only reason why I wanted to mention this is because this is an anthology film from 1965. It's one, two, three, four, five, six anthology films from prominent French filmmakers that you may know of. So these six films are Saint Germain des Prés by Jean Duché, Gare du Nord from Jean Roche, Rue Saint Denis from Jean Daniel Paulet, Place oh boy, Place de l'Étoile by Eric Romer, or Eric Romer. If you have the Eric Romer box set, actually, there's a couple of Eric Romer box sets now. Montparnasse et le Voilà by Jean-Luc Godard, big name there, and then La Mouette by Claude Chabrol. There's two box sets of Claude Chabrol work from Arrow. There's a Claude Chabrol releases from Criterion, so you know the names. So I wanted to mention that this is actually something I may get, just because I'm fascinated with this concept. The movie only runs 96 minutes, so these are relative. You have to assume these are relative short, short stories here, short films. Yeah. So that's Six in Paris. So moving on from Six in Paris, we have Supermarket from Subculture USA. I did not get to see this. I wanted to see it because it sounded very interesting. In order to survive on the rough streets of Hamburg, 18-year-old Willie gets by with small-time racketeering. After an arrest, the authorities decide to send him to a reformatory. But he escapes from police custody and falls into the clutches of a pimp who sends him to the gay sex trade. Holy heck. At the same time, Willie meets a journalist who draws him into hopeless resocialization projects, primarily to improve his own life. When Willie falls in love with a girl who seems to be even worse off than he is, he sets his mind on freeing her from her dreariness and running away with her. But the accumulated problems are so great that his past catches up with him in a dramatic way. Holy heck, this movie sounds fascinating. This is a 4K UHD release, region-free 4K UHD release, and Blu-ray set. German, like I said, a German film. Yeah, this sounds like an alternate Innocence release. It really does. It's something like Wounded Man, which I happen. No, I got it down here somewhere. Might as well. I got Wounded Man over here. I tell you, I've got stuff all over the place. I need to start organizing things. But so it feels like that type of movie, that type of grit, that type of dealing with just life's harsh realities while going on a personal journey. That's what the movie feels like. I couldn't find it anywhere to stream or anywhere to watch. Man, I wish I did. Man, I wish I did. But uh, sounds interesting to me. So that's Supermarket from director Roland Klick from 1974, 84 minutes long, German film. Who's putting this out? Yeah, Subculture USA. Very interesting. So let's move on to Utopia's putting out The Sweet East. This is a film you can currently watch on Hulu. If this is the movie I think it is. Yes, The Sweet East is a picaresque journey through the cities and woods of the eastern seaboard of the United States. Lillian, a high school senior from South Carolina, gets her first glimpse of the wider world on a class trip to Washington, D.C. Separated from her classmates, she embarks on a fractured road trip in search of America. Kind of. It's a very interesting cross section of people she meets along the way. So, like I said, this is streaming on Hulu right now. That's where I watched it, and it is. Let me see. Let me go back to it. Yes, it came out in 2022. Runs about 104 minutes long. Um, you may notice some people who show up in this movie. For example, uh, Ayo Edebiri from um the Bear, and who just won like every single award you could win for her performance in The Bear, that TV series. She's in this. Jacob Elordi from oh heck, he just played Elvis in Priscilla. He and of course he's also on Euphoria. He's in this for a little bit. Um, yeah. So this young girl who's this senior in high school, so kind of that transition stage between childhood and adulthood. She ends up going on this field trip with friends and then kind of gets lost. And the movie is kind of, Alice going down the rabbit hole type of journey where she meets a bunch of like weird individuals along the way. And she gets caught up in all of the different lives that these people live, and she gets caught up in living all of these different lives in a very short amount of time. And she's Alice in Wonderland. Um, and the movie's a little loosely structured, and there's not a real strong plot to it. But then I think that's the point. You're trying to go on this just hodgepodge journey that she's going on. The movie is relatively indie. It looks like a shot with a low budget, but it's interesting to say the least. Simon Rex is in the film as well. Simon Rex, who was in Sean Baker's film Red Rocket. Yeah, Red Rocket. I just want to make sure I got the name right. Yeah, he's in this film as well. There's political angles to it. There's artsy angles to it in terms of themes and whatnot. Fascinating film. Fascinating film. I liked it enough. I liked it enough to at least recommend it for people to give it a watch to see what they think, but go into it with an open indie movie mind, and with a loose structure. Like I said, Alice in Wonderland. Just keep thinking Alice in Wonderland, and this is put out by Utopia. Like I said. Next, we've got Yellow Veil Pictures put out To the Moon. To the Moon. This is a movie that I had high hopes for, and then by the end of it, I was like, it's not that great. Unfortunate. It's a movie that I think the premise of it is interesting, but the execution of it and the nuts and bolts of the movie just didn't end up working for me. So, a weekend of healing for Dennis and Maya becomes a hallucinatory nightmare when Dennis's estranged brother arrives and begins to distort their sense of reality. So, we've got the woods, we've got trippy drug use, we've got weird things happening in the woods. You know what I mean? We've got this kind of psychological journey going on. I'm into it. Think Midsommar in the woods on a much smaller scale. It kind of is that way, but it plays out exactly as you would expect it to play out, with a little extra mystery thrown in just to spice things up. And it really doesn't come together for me, um, unfortunately. Some of the acting is not great. The director, Scott Friend, he is also in the film as well. I thought the actor who played the brother, Will Brill, was really good. I thought he was doing the most heavy lifting when it came to the acting, but some of the dialogue and line readings it just took me out of it. Just really took me out of it. When it was a movie that I think you were supposed to be rather engaged with because it was supposed to be creepy and atmospheric and like mysterious, and some of the acting and line reads, I was like, you are not playing this the way you think you are. That's just me being, I guess, perhaps overly critical, but that's just the way I viewed it. This is coming out from Yellow Veil Pictures. Um, let's see, Tramps from Decalogue I didn't get to see, but I wanted to see. And that's about it. So they've got some deals going on this month for Partner Labels Month over on Vinegar Syndrome's website. Um, quickly, I wanted to um, at least, mention Mondo Macabro once again because I didn't get to mention what they've got going on their website. Let me see. Um, yeah, I wanted to see if they had any news stories that I could quickly go to, but check out what they've got going. I didn't get to mention it here. Um, but yeah, so that it will be it for all the stuff from the last 2 weeks that I've at least been interested in here. Long show. This is a long solo show for me. So thanks for sticking around. If you're listening, if you're watching the stream, if you're watching later on the stream, thanks for sticking around. I greatly appreciate all the support from all of you listening and watching. We've got some things that we just finished doing movies down memory lane, the third part we did for the Jim Carrey trilogy, I guess we could call it. We just finished going over all of the movies in Jim Carrey's catalog. We're working on another series for that, another episode for that later on. We will be skipping Unwatched Pile this month for the month of June. My birthday is June 17th, and we usually kind of shoot those on Mondays, as you may know. And I'll be busy that day, and then Steven is doing other things later on in his life. So I want to, we just won't have the time in the schedules for us. Our schedules just don't line up. So we will be skipping that for this month. So we will be doing Unwatched Pile next month. We probably will have some other videos coming up here soon. Because I know Steven wanted to talk about some things that he's gotten in the mail, so look out for those. And yeah, go back and watch all the interviews and all the things that we've been doing here, all the unwatched piles and stuff, and whatever. Just hey, any support we'll get here for Chasing Labels, we will happily accept. So yeah, um, and check. So you can find this podcast audio on all the usual places: Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, the usual places. Obviously here on YouTube with the live stream. So without further ado, hey, keep on watching those movies because I know I will.